Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today, both here and at the venue and online. Despite your busy schedules and the summer heat, we would now like to open the RE User Summit 2026, Impact of Renewable Energy on Overcoming the Energy Crisis. My name is Kurosaki Miyako, Liaison Coordinator at the Renewable Energy Institute, REI, and I will be serving as the moderator for today's event. Thank you very much. Today, we will have simultaneous interpretation between Japanese and English. Please feel free to listen in whichever language you prefer. For those attending on site, a networking reception will follow the program. We hope you will use the opportunity to exchange business cards with our speakers and fellow participants. Now, let's proceed with the program. To open the summit, we will hear welcoming remarks from Ono Teruyuki, Executive Director of REI. Ono-san, please. Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Ono. Today is very hot. Thank you very much for participating at the venue as well as online, despite this weather. Both together, we have 1,200 people participating today. We appreciate your interest. Today is extreme heat day today. And this is not just in Japan, but in Europe as well. We are beset with extreme heat waves. So climate change crisis must be halted. That is the reason why renewable energy is very important. And renewable energy will play a very important role in enhancing energy security as well. And this year, the title is Impact of Renewable Energy on Overcoming the Energy Crisis. With Japan is relying on 84% of the fossil fuel exports. This is showing the vulnerability of Japan with the advent of the Middle East crisis on the part of REI. We have found that the 2022 Russia's Ukraine aggression has led to 13.6 trillion yen of fossil fuel subsidy. And if we had changed our policy and during the Strait of Hormuz crisis for the 6 months, we would have saved 720 billion yen in terms of energy cost. If we had used 5% of the fossil fuel subsidy to the energy saving as well as renewable energy expansion. That is the reason why these three pillars are of utmost importance. Now, the renewable energy is expanding not only for Japan, but corporate management has an important role to play as well. Therefore, today we'll take up corporate PPA and we will also showcase companies of state-of-the-art examples of their initiatives in this area. I would like to express my gratitude for the speakers today as well. Today, we will also hear about the global trends as well. We will hear from Ms. Sonia Dunlop of the Global Solar Council, CEO, and also a representative from SPT talking about the revisions. And Nicholas Faden-san of SPT Initiative will be speaking today as well. We have the program until 1800. Today is a long day, but we hope that you will continue to enjoy the program. Once again, thank you very much for your participation today. Thank you very much. Next, we will hear about the global deployment of solar power from Ms. Sonia Dunlop, CEO of the Global Solar Council, the international industry body for solar photovoltaics. Due to scheduling, her presentation will be delivered by video. Please enjoy.
My name is Sonia Dunlop, and I'm the CEO of the Global Solar Council, the worldwide solar PV, battery storage, and solar industry association. I'm so sorry I can't be with you in person today in Tokyo at the RE Users Summit organized by the Renewable Energy Institute of Japan. I have been to your event several times and salute the work of the REI, of Mika, of Thomas, of Masaya, and Mayu, and the whole team in the amazing work you do in Japan. I wish I could be there with you in person, and I hope to be with you again in the future. However, I wanted to bring you this video message as a quick presentation of the latest global market status of solar and battery storage, just to give you a flavor of how we are now at the beginning of a dawn of a solar plus storage era, where battery storage is now completely changing the way we think about solar and completely changing what is possible in terms of round-the-clock solar power. First, I want to set the global context. As you know, we, as the Global Solar Council, we are the worldwide industry association representing companies and national associations from around the world. And I'm delighted to say that 2025 last year set a new record, yet another new record in terms of global solar deployment, with 664 gigawatts of solar installed worldwide. And in April of this year, in April 2026, we met the 3 terawatt target. The great news is that this means that solar is now the fastest growing source of electricity in the history of civilization, as well as being the cheapest source of electricity in the history of civilization. And it means that a good 25%, a quarter of the new electricity demand, as reported by the International Energy Agency, was now met by solar and solar plus storage. Of course, the Asia-Pacific region, which Japan is a part of, is the undisputed global leader in terms of solar plus storage, accounting for 70% of global solar capacity additions. And Japan, as a market, has a huge amount of potential as well. But what you might ask is the outlook over the next 5 years. Well, over the next 5 years, we are expecting that after a temporary plateau in 2026, where we are expecting a flat global solar market, we will quickly return to double-digit year-on-year growth. And our mission at the Global Solar Council is to push even further, to go beyond even the 7.6 terawatts of total installed capacity that are predicted to be the high scenario in 2030, but to push to try and get that up to 8 terawatts of total installed capacity. This is what we think is necessary to deliver the world's energy access goals, to deliver the world's economic growth and competitiveness goals, and to bring power to the people and address the energy security and cost of living crisis that we are in at the moment. But what do we need to do in order to get to 8 terawatts of total installed capacity of solar and 1.5 terawatts of total installed capacity of battery storage? We need to accelerate investment in grids, especially in countries where the grid was built a long time ago. And we need to reform the process for connecting a utility scale project to the grid in order to make those grid connection queues logical, sensible, and responsive to the different projects coming online. We need to reform electricity market design and reform the tariffs awarded to different types of electricity, to reward flexibility, to incentivize self-consumption, and to make sure that the fundamental design of our market, which is something that does not cost any money, keeps up with the different technologies available. Battery storage can now provide many of the services to the grid that were previously provided by traditional thermal power stations and needs to be rewarded to do so. We need to incentivize battery storage deployment in general. There are many countries around the world that have deployed a lot of solar and wind, but have not deployed battery storage. And the two now have to go hand in hand. So in markets such as Australia, which has a lot of solar, we have seen new additional programs to deploy battery storage at large scale in the grid and at small scale in people's homes in order to make sure that we have that balance of solar plus storage. In many global south markets around the world, we need to reduce the cost of capital for solar PV. The cost of finance remains a major barrier, and we need to be thinking about reducing that cost of capital in order to unlock many projects in the pipeline. And that is why we as the Global Solar Council with our finance task force are creating a template investment memorandum to be used for utility scale solar projects anywhere in the world. To help the process of submitting a project to an investment committee in a bank or a fund. We need to streamline permitting, licensing, and administrative procedures because there are many markets around the world, including the United States, where there is still too much red tape, too much bureaucracy around installing a solar project, be it a solar farm or a solar rooftop. And we need to be removing that red tape and giving automatic rights to go solar, except in exceptional circumstances, for final consumers and for homeowners around the world. Of course, we also need to strengthen the resilience of the supply chain. We at the Global Solar Council are very clear that we are working towards a low-cost, diversified, resilient, profitable, sustainable global supply chain for both solar PV and battery storage, and are working on a proposal that we want to bring to the world of how we think the supply chain should evolve over the next 25 years, based on evidence-based modeling to do this. In the Global South, also, we are very clear that we need to support solar plus storage for productive uses, for resilience, for adaptation to climate impacts, for irrigation of agriculture, for powering refrigeration and off-grid solar and storage uses, all the solar plus uses that are really going to transform the development prospects of many parts of the world. We are very clear that we need to support electrification. We need to support the electrification of end-use sectors, such as transport, such as heating, such as industrial demand, in order to both create that flexibility in the power system, to ensure that we are using the most efficient electrode tech, which is always more efficient than combustion, and to make sure that we have the ability to do that demand response in the system. And then we are clear that critical infrastructure that is necessary in emergency situations must now be fitted behind the meter solar plus storage, whether it be a telecom, whether it be critical health infrastructure or transport infrastructure. Solar plus storage can provide resilience to that infrastructure that is different to what traditional grids have provided in the past. And finally, we are very clear that solar plus storage is not just about middle income families going solar. Solar plus storage is not just about solar farms with multi-million investment. It's also for people in low-income households. It's also for people in multi-occupancy apartment blocks or multi-occupancy commercial buildings. We have balcony and plug-in solar. We have third-party owned solar that can get beyond the landlord-tenant problem, and we have finance solutions for the very bottom of the pyramid, the very lowest income communities in the world. And this will help them become more resilient, help them be part of economic growth, and help them have access to electricity services in a way that they have not done before. Global battery storage deployment, I'm delighted to say, has now surpassed the 100 gigawatt total installed capacity mark. And this is growing hugely at 39% year-on-year growth between 2024 and 2025. And delighted to say that over 80% of this is utility scale, but the behind the meter market in both commercial industrial applications and residential applications is growing fast, and that this market is growing so quickly that it is going to unlock that additional flexibility in the system that will allow more solar to come forward. By 2030, we are projecting that the global battery storage capacity will reach around 1.2 terawatts, or a 14-fold increase in total installed capacity of battery storage. Of course, much of this is being installed in China, but the United States, Europe, and the rest of the world are also key markets. And we are seeing more diversification in manufacturing and battery storage than we have seen in terms of the solar supply chain. A word on best practice around the world, and we as the Global Solar Council are in the process of creating some quality commitments to really help spread best practice from every part of the value chain, upstream manufacturing and downstream project development. And one of those things is about lowering the visual impact of our technology. We are a very low-lying technology, and if correctly sited, behind hedgerows, behind other pieces of infrastructure, or on bodies of water, the visual impact of our technology can be almost zero, leading to a really new generation of power plants that are not an eyesore on the landscape. We are also seeing an increasing trend of corporate power purchase agreements, the corporate sourcing of renewable energy electricity by big company power consumers, such as, of course, the famous names such as Google and Microsoft and Apple and Meta and so on, but also other companies such as Danone and other food industry companies, chemicals companies, and so on, who are now sourcing their electricity not from their traditional utility, but direct from solar and wind and battery storage developers and asset owners through corporate power purchase agreements. And I'm delighted to say that we now have the resource platform in Europe, the Asia Clean Energy Coalition in Asia, and the Latin America Clean Energy Coalition in Latin America, really trying to bring the two sides together, the renewables generators and the corporate power consumers, in order to make sure that this market is facilitated and that the regulations are in place to allow it to happen. And on the buyer side, on the corporate buyer side, we have three main organizations: the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, the RE100 campaign, which is part of the climate group, and the Clean Energy Buyers Association from the United States, working to represent the views and the needs of the clean energy corporate buyers, and very much working to open up this market to new countries around the world and make sure that the electricity market design allows this kind of purchasing of renewables to happen. We are aware that there are a certain number of myths around solar plus storage, and we want to make clear that many of these are completely unfounded. So first of all, the myth around solar farms using too much land. Well, in fact, less than 2% of the world's land would in fact be able to power the world with solar plus storage. And with increasing research and development and ever more powerful solar modules, including perovskites, that is likely to go down and down. Or indeed, of course, there's also the option of behind the meter solar plus storage on rooftops, but even on balconies and so on. And there have been calculations that if you put solar on every single appropriate roof in the world, you would generate 27 petawatt hours of electricity, enough to power the world and more. There is often a myth around solar farms damaging nature, but in fact, when you build a solar farm, you create a wildlife reserve. The biodiversity net gain, the biodiversity benefits of this technology are remarkable. And if you do the correct environmental impact assessments, if you apply the right quality standards, and if you site these projects responsibly, you can really protect and restore the biodiversity and the soil underneath the project in a big way. And our member Amarenco is one of the world's leading providers of these soil restoration benefits as well. A lot of people might say, what happens when the sun goes down? But now with the advent of cheap and plentiful battery storage, the solar plus storage combination can smooth fluctuations, shift daytime generation into the evening, thereby lessening the and even into the night. In California now, we have days where the Californian solar farms are providing more electricity to the grid at night via battery storage than they are during the day, reducing the need for curtailment, improving the flexibility in the grid, and helping integrate solar and battery storage into round-the-clock power generation. Some people are worried about the waste from solar panels, but actually solar can be recycled up to 97% of the components of a solar panel, and similar to a battery storage system. And as long as there is a national system in place for the prepaid, pre-organized recycling of solar and battery storage, as long as there are effective in decommissioning rules, we could become an entirely circular industry in the early 2040s. Some people are still of the view that solar might be expensive, but in fact, that is no longer the case. The cost of solar has come down 90% over the last 15 years and 73% in the case of battery storage since only 2017. Solar is now the cheapest form of energy generation in the history of civilization, and solar plus battery storage can provide 80% of the world's people, the world's population, with 90% of the power they need round the clock at less than $80 per megawatt hour. Some people think they don't want solar near them, but public opinion polls have shown time and time again in countries all over the world that solar, both in terms of rooftop solar and in terms of solar farms, are in fact the most popular form of energy generation over all the others. And early and transparent community engagement where the community really has the opportunity to suggest improvements to the project, to suggest additional benefits to the local community and environment, perhaps a pathway here, perhaps some tree planting there. It really helps the quality of these projects and helps bring in local support. Last, I want to say something about our residential solar plus storage program called 300 Million Solar Homes, which we are in the process of preparing a big global launch for. This is really a global alliance of the solar plus storage industry, of the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, which is a network of 14,000 mayors around the world, 14,000 cities around the world who are committed to taking action on climate and energy, and solar citizens and other solar consumer groups, really coming together to set a global deployment target or initiative of 300 million solar homes by 2030. And these are homes that also need to have a heat pump, they need to have electric vehicle charging points, and can really become leaders in terms of electrotech technology. Why? Because distributed behind the meter rooftop solar and storage, when combined with these other technologies, delivers resilience, delivers savings, and delivers access to energy that doesn't require grid connections. This can be done on grid, can be done off grid, can be done as plug-in solar plus storage. And we really think that this is a fast and flexible way of deploying the technology that is modular, that is scalable, that lowers households' bills from the following month onwards, that provides electrification, and that reduces the need for grid upgrade work. Across the Asia Pacific, distributed solar is already delivering huge benefits. Australia, for example, has 28.3 gigawatts of capacity with over 4 million solar homes and is adding battery storage at a huge rate. Pakistan has recently gone through a solar rush where it installed 50 gigawatts of solar and battery storage over the last few years, with more than 3 million households now having solar under the net metering program and more under the other different frameworks. And that has now avoided 12 billion of fossil fuel imports. And India has set its PMS-wide target of 10 million solar homes by the end of 2027, has 28 gigawatts of grid-connected rooftop solar and storage capacity, and 4 million homes already solarized. So that is why we are going to launch this 300 million solar homes initiative, where we want every single household in the world to have the ability to choose solar and be compensated for the excess electricity fed into the grid and for the services, the flexibility services that that household can now provide. We know it took 70 years to reach where we are now. We think we have about 150 million solar homes around the world, and our ambition is to deliver the next 150 million in the next 4 years, reaching that 300 million objective by the end of this decade. We think that will translate into about 2 terawatts of newly installed capacity and 1.25 gigatons of avoided CO2, and will touch the lives of over 1 billion people. Thank you so much for your time. Please do get in touch if you have any questions. We have teams all over the world here at the Global Solar Council, and I do hope this was useful for you. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your conference in Tokyo.
Thank you very
much for your kind attention. Now, moving our perspective to Japan domestically, looking at the latest developments and how the corporate PPA is being adopted, we would like to ask Mr. Ishida, the head of research at REI, to speak. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ishida from REI. What I would like to speak about today is the latest trends in Japan, especially of the electricity charges due to energy crisis these days. And in the latter half, what may be the effective the ways to respond to the situation, the corporate PPA as a system, which is now becoming increasingly popular in Japan. Now, I have shown you a pie graph, first of all, on every year how electricity is being generated. This is the breakdown. And the green is the renewable energy, 23%, of which the yellow is the solar. And the next is the blue, the hydro, and then bioenergy. And from the gray to black, these are fossil fuels, LNG, coal, and petroleum. Those fossil fuels still at 70% or so. But because of the Middle East crisis, the procurement of energy is becoming harder and energy prices are going up. So when it comes to supply of energy and electricity charges, there are great impact on these the levels. So how can we be able to increase the percentage of renewable energy? We need suppliers as well as the consumers. Both need to do more in terms of efforts to be undertaken. For many, many years in Japan, we have been dependent upon fossil fuel. For the past 20 years, looking at the CO2 emission intensity, let's say how much of the CO2 is emitted per 1 kilowatt hour, rather than being reduced. In the past 2 decades, it has been slightly increasing. But looking at the other major countries, China, it is higher than Japan because of the coal-fired power plants, but the United States and Germany are lower than Japan, and the UK is lower than half compared to Japan. So for global businesses headquartered in Japan, rather than doing business in Japan, it would be cheaper using electricity in terms of CO2 emission as well, doing business abroad rather than in Japan. And if the situation continues, it may have a great impact on the industry competitiveness inside Japan. Now, turning to electricity tariffs, this is looking at unit price on a national average, looking at the year-on-year developments. And as Russia has made aggression against Ukraine in the year 2022, you have seen a spike in the prices. But in Japan, the subsidies have been introduced, so the unit tariff or the unit price is coming down. But looking at the fiscal year 2025, compared to fiscal year 2024, more than 5 yen higher. And this year, for fiscal year 2026, starting in April, the level will become even higher. Now, for electricity tariffs, looking at the fuel cost reflected in the prices, looking at per usage months, the developments of the fuel costs. Now, we are coming into July this year, especially LNG and crude oil are going up. And in August and September, it will further go up. So the electricity charges will also increase at home as well as at the workplace. Now, what about the renewable electricity? As of the fiscal 2024, it is 23.1%, only up by 0.2%. Looking at the other countries, Germany and UK, it is more than 50%, and for China, it is 39%. Looking at the electricity demand in China, this is 7 times as great in Japan, but still 39% has been produced from renewables. And US, there is more than 4 times the demand, but the level is higher than Japan at 26%. Japan, people say that we have smaller land area, but if the situation persists, as the world over are moving towards decarbonized systems, and Japan may be left behind because it is still being too much dependent on fossil fuels. Now, looking at the solar PV, this is looking at an annual basis of the power generation. Only a little bit of increase from the fiscal year 2023 to 2024. The one major reason is the FIT prices have come down. And the other factor is for the vast land area which are suitable for mega solar, the utility, the size, the solar projects, such land area is becoming less and less. And the more of a concern these days is the community, the opposition. And unfortunately, at city of Kushiro, they have declared no more mega solar because close to the wetland in Kushiro, there has been an illegal mega solar projects been built, and the city had to declare this. And the national government have agreed at the cabinet level, trying to strengthen regulation over the solar PV farms. But you can see the third element, that they will increasingly place importance in providing support to community-based coexistence type of utility scale, the solar PV project. For fiscal year 2024, looking at the energy outlook for the renewable energy as a whole, 40% to 50%, the renewables should be increased, and especially for solar PV, it should be increased threefold, and that is the outlook given by the national government. Unless we can achieve these levels, decarbonization goal for Japan will not be proceeding as necessary. So the national government is still trying to support the renewable energy deployment. And although the suitable land area is becoming less and less, the potential is still there. In the residential area and on the rooftop, on buildings, there's a lot of potential. and especially the farmlands. In Japan, more than 10% of the farmlands are being abandoned and no cultivation is being made. And such abandoned agricultural land, solar PV panels could be built, and also cultivation could be done underneath the solar panels. So a coexistence type of the solar PV, and then the fiscal year 2034 could be met if you could utilize those unused land area. And for the local districts, not just regulating more strictly, but like Toyama City is trying to promote solar PV. And the green shows the area where the city is promoting. The red area is where it will be controlled and regulated. So for areas where there is less impact on environment, the city government has designated those areas to promote the solar PV. So decarbonization could be proceeded with, and trying to revitalize the local economy at the same time. So the local governments are trying to promote the renewable energy. About 80 or so local governments are trying to promote renewable energy by setting up promotion areas. So the renewable energy, which is able to reconcile with the local community development, will be promoted further. And especially for solar PV, the cost is coming down drastically, as you can see. In terms of solar PV, per 1 kilowatt hour, it is less than 10 yen right now. And for wholesale, electricity price is about 10 yen to 15 yen. So rather than purchasing from the market, trying to introduce yourself the solar PV the projects, and it would be much cheaper if you could utilize such power.
Now, against this backdrop, corporate PPA is taking up momentum amongst the users. Its dedicated power generation facility will be constructed, and power will be purchased on a long-term basis. In other words, the power generation facility can be on-site, or it could be off-site, which is in a remote location. Currently, both on-site and off-site are increasing not only for large companies, but also for small and medium-sized companies. Increasingly, corporate PPA is being adopted. Let me give you some examples. On-site PPA is shown here. Left-hand side is a factory. You can see it is a very large building, and on the rooftop, the solar PVs are installed, and it is consumed internally. Right-hand side is a major shopping mall. It is very difficult to see, but on the whole building, the solar panels are installed. There is also carport type of solar PVs being installed as well. The power generators is being consumed within the shopping center. The carport type facility compared to the rooftop means that the cost is higher. However, on the other hand, for people who are coming by cars, it is cooler in the car, and in times of rain, they don't get wet. Therefore, this is very useful for the local facilities where the carports can be increasingly installed. Now, in terms of economics, there is an advantage shown for corporate PPAs. Now, out of the electricity prices, I'm just looking at here the high voltage for on-site PPA. For sure, it is lower than the regular electricity price, but even if it is off-site, it is around the same level. Going forward, it is likely that electricity prices will go up. But in terms of on-site and off-site, it's long-term fixed price. Therefore, increasingly, In terms of cost, PPA is likely to become more advantageous. Against this backdrop, in addition to on-site, off-site, PPA is increasing every year. For the first half of this year, according to disclosed numbers, there have been 100 already. Therefore, for the full year, it is likely that we are poised to see a significant growth. For inclusive of undisclosed projects, it will be increasing by multifold. Therefore, for many companies as well as municipalities, the off-site PPA is likely to increase significantly going forward. Let me give you some specific examples. This is a solar showing off-site PPA for agriculture. Now, for the power purchasing company, they are able to purchase the power that is not emitting CO2, and at the same time, they can contribute to the reinvigoration of agriculture in the region. Therefore, this type of off-site PPA is receiving high expectations. Furthermore, off-site PPA for onshore wind is increasing as well as for hydro. Multiple number of companies, users are contracting for this, for hydro. Here, this is being announced very recently. This is off-site PPA for geothermal, which has begun. For geothermal as well as for hydro, there is a stable supply of energy even during the nighttime. So by combining that with the solar PV, the off-site PPA can increasingly meet the demand, becoming more easier to procure. But in terms of geothermal as well as hydro and onshore wind power, compared to solar PV, the power generation cost is still high. Therefore, feed-in premium should be combined. By so doing, geothermal as well as onshore wind power, we should be able to have now off-site PPA, which is comparable to photovoltaic and biomass. We are seeing off-site PPA emerging as well. Inclusive of other renewable energies, utilizing various methodologies, off-site PPA will be increasingly be available for procuring electricity. Now, another new trend is electricity retail by corporate users by themselves. Now, today, we will hear from 7-Eleven, MUFG, and Hulic. They are all forming groups to develop the renewable energies as well as retail as a whole group. Therefore, the companies, users, will not only be the users of energies, but they will also be called for generating their own energies increasingly. There are still many issues in this area in terms of electricity procurement through renewable energies. For example, local opposition exists, but there are many businesses promoting this area. By resolving these challenges one after another, we hope that we can generate more electricity by renewable energy. GHG protocol revision is listed in the last bullet point. SBTI new standard will be introduced today, and the SBT and GHG are working together for revision. We hope this will be of reference for you. Therefore, the global GHG emissions trend should be taken into consideration when you procure electricity for the users as well as for business operators. Please make sure you have a long-term perspective in expanding the the electricity generated by renewable energies with your effort. We hope that we can promote decarbonization in Japan in a steadfast manner. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ishida. Now, in the world as well as in Japan, the corporate PPAs and other systems have been increasing the adoption of the renewable energy. How the businesses are actually increasing the renewable usage. We have major 3 companies making presentation from now onwards, starting with 7-Eleven Japan. From the Construction Equipments Division, Energy Department, Mr. Shiba Yasuhiro will speak. So, Mr. Shiba, please. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As has been kindly introduced, my name is Shiba from 7-Eleven Japan. Thank you very much for providing this opportunity, and I am pleased to explain to you what we do at 7-Eleven. The title is Trying to Realize Decarbonized Society, in which 7-Eleven is trying to achieve. So I would like to be given a few minutes to explain what 7-Eleven is doing. Now, about introducing the company itself. I am an employee of 7-Eleven Japan, and we have 21,927 outlets inside Japan, from Hokkaido to Okinawa. Close to 22,000 outlets are already opened. Looking at the whole world, we have 86,939, close to 87,000. We are aiming for 100,000. So we have so many colleagues and workers around the world, and we have this big sales turnover, but the customers coming to our outlets in Japan, there are 20 million such customers buying the rice balls as well as the other items and the products. 921 customers per outlet. So how we are trying to decarbonize the whole system. But before going into the explanation, let me explain about the business model. We have a franchise business model. This is the scheme. We have merchants, franchise merchants, and the headquarters working together. So at the beginning, it was mostly liquor shops who have turned into convenience shops. But there are many different types of stores and people coming into the franchise, the system, and the headquarters is supporting those businesses. Now, at the Construction Equipment Division, what we do is the electricity charges as well as the other utility charges are being overseen by our division. We have refrigerators as well as the fryers, as well as the microwave equipments, those fixtures at the franchise merchants. So we are leasing those equipments to the franchisees. And we have been always consulting with the manufacturers, trying to go for more energy saving and energy conservation type of equipments to be developed. So that is what the 7-Eleven does. In Toyosu, 50 years ago, we were born there. The Toyosu outlet, which is still being managed even today. So it's been 50 years since then. So for the past 50 years, as you can see, we have been able to provide economic the value, because this is a business, so it has to be profit-making, and more than 20,000 outlets are in operation. And we have had a lot of debate and discussion inside the company, and 20,000 outlets nationwide, not just making profits, will be good. We need to go for social value, societal value, economic value, and social value. Both needs to be achieved. So we need to look at health as well as a community and also environment that we are responsible for, and also the human resources as assets, that if people who do buy and eat food provided by 7-Eleven, they will become healthier. So we will be able to coexist with the community. And there are so many different age groups as well as the different nationalities are working at the 7-Eleven outlets. And we are also giving consideration to the environment. And those are the 4 visions that we have put forward, that we would go for the next 100 years of the business operation. Now, back in 2019, as a group, we have put forth the Green Challenge 2050, an environment declaration. It was under the Suga government. By the year 2050, Japan would go for carbon neutrality, and this was put forward by the national government. And following that example, 7-Eleven Japan have also come up with declaration for the CO2 emission by the year 2030, the interim target, 50% reduction. And as we go toward 2050, it should be substantially zero. And we also have the program to reduce plastics and also to try to reduce food losses and recycle the food. And we are trying to go for sustainable procurement as well. When I look back for all these 4 efforts, of course, CO2 emission reduction, this is something self-evident, going for decarbonization, but with 3 additional endeavors. All these would lead to decarbonizing our business. So all these 4 topics and themes will be directly related to carbon neutrality. Against this backdrop, what 7-Eleven outlets do, looking at CO2 emission reduction per se, 99% it is electricity, and it does emit CO2. And the chart shows, the red line shows the total electricity the usage. And of course, if you multiply by the emission, you can have the total emission. From the 2013, this is the base year, and by last year, the latest year, the red line have been going up, but 2019 has been peak, and it has become less in a moderate way. And this is when Japan was hit by the COVID pandemic. And because of the pandemic, it has gone down sharply, but then it has been gradually increasing ever since then. But as you can see, during that time, the number of outlets have also increased. From 2013 to 2025, 5,000 outlets have been added. So the number of outlets have been increasing, the convenience stores increasing, so the usage of electricity has been going up. But we have been able to see a peaking in 2025. We have been able to reduce that. Looking at the emission intensity, it has been rather flat, but we have been focusing on this, trying to bring down. A slight decrease is what we are aiming for. By the year 2030, half the base year. So to bring down to 710,000 or so. And why 2019 we have been able to stop the sharp increase? Per convenience store, per 1 outlet, we have been able to stop the increase in the electricity usage. All the lightings have been changed to LED lightings, and we have solar panels on the rooftop. For those convenience shops where the rooftop is available, we have installed solar panels, and we are also trying to go for energy saving as much as possible. Even though the number of outlets have gone up, per shop electricity usage have come down, but the year 2021 has been the lowest. And why is it increasing a little bit more? That is because we are also selling the coffee and other drinks, and also we are baking the bread as well. And when we have a lot of the refrigeration, the units to be installed into the shops, because frozen food is selling very well these days. In order to increase the sales turnover, we need to make investment into new items, and sometimes equipments are needed, so we need to invest. But still, we would try to make it flat and make it less. So this is per convenience shop, the usage of electricity. For the latest outlets, we have been able to reduce maybe 100,000 kilowatt hour per year for the new outlets. Now, what 7-Eleven does, in order to reduce the CO2 emission, we have 3 pillars. One is energy saving, that is to say, the equipment, as well as LED lightings and the other packages and so forth. We are trying to educate the staffs to reduce the energy usage, and also producing energy, especially the rooftop solar panels, and not just rooftop, but we are also introducing solar carports for parking areas. And where snow falls, for those cold areas, because of the snow, we are not able to install rooftop solar panels. So what we are considering right now is a vertical type of solar panels. We are now conducting tests, and also batteries. So energy production is also important, but in order to achieve even greater energy saving, we need to procure from outside. It has been mostly mega solar projects owned by third party. But next year, we will be starting onshore wind farms. And from next year, we will utilize agriculture irrigation water for micro hydro projects. It is 24 hours for many of the convenience stores. So even during the nighttime, we would like to go for energy saving as well, especially wind power and hydro. So we will be starting from next year. And biomass generation for partial districts. In Shikoku area, we have 300 outlets, and we would like to introduce biomass generation, so up to 75% per outlet. We will starting from the fiscal year 2025. So to have outside procurement of renewable energy, this is very important, and we would like to go for more going forward. So we are taking on this challenge. These are the efforts in terms of energy conservation. We have hard projects as well as softer projects. For franchise merchants, we are educating the owners and staffs. We have energy conservation leaders that are being designated, and they check whether wasteful lightings are being switched on or it is properly switched off or not. Air conditioning to be set at the more appropriate temperature. The energy conservation leaders are watching and supervising, and we make it visible how the electricity usage is fluctuating. So the energy usage is being managed properly. But ultimately, the burden is on the merchants. So we would like to introduce artificial intelligence to have the AI control, especially for the air conditioning. And we are now consulting with several manufacturers whether it is possible to have AI-controlled air conditioning and not ask the staffs to do the switch on or switch off by themselves, but have the AI control the most optimum level of temperature per store. And we have been testing about 6 months, and the conclusion is about 20% of electricity usage could be saved. So AI-controlled electricity usage will be further deployed to the other outlets as well. But in operating the stores, we would like to do away with wasteful usage of electricity. So we are trying to educate the franchise merchants, especially switching off the wasteful electricity, lightings, and so forth, so that they will be able to become aware of how wasteful they are in terms of electricity usage. For example, placing certain goods and products on top of refrigerator would lead to wasteful usage of energy. And we have formulated the handbooks and manuals so that the merchants will be able to know how to minimize the usage of electricity. But that has not really thoroughly spread to the merchants. So we need to do more in our efforts. And for energy production, energy generation, it is mostly solar PV, but we are trying to add battery storage as well. About more than 9,000 convenience stores have installed rooftop solar panels. It is more than 40% of the total number of the outlets. And we have close to 400,000 square meters. By the year 2030, more than 10,000 outlets, or maybe 10,500 outlets. But there are some convenience shops inside the buildings, so we are perhaps at reaching the limit. So we are trying to go for other modes, like solar carports, as well as vertical panel type of solar PVs, and especially the battery storage. And of course, we have excess electricity being produced, especially during the daytime. And we would like to introduce the battery storage, but the cost is too high right now. So the electricity in excess in the daytime to use during the nighttime, that is still expensive. So we would like to introduce demand response system. And when the demand is greater, the cost will come down. And with the aggregators, we are trying to consult and trying to introduce a system. And also purchase and sell electricity in the market. When it is cheaper, we can buy, and when it is more expensive, we can sell the electricity, trying to introduce the energy management system. And that is what we are going for. But it is too costly right now. So we are still considering. And lastly, the most important point is trying to procure from outside renewable energy. In the year 2021, in Chiba City, And together with NTT Anode, we have worked in collaboration. This is the very first off-site PPA. And the various mass media have reported on this. And at last, the retail industry is going for off-site PPAs. We have a lot of interviews, and we have been in the limelight of the media. And that was the starting point. And for all the districts in Japan, there are 10 electric utility districts, and of which 7 we have already off-site PPA with them. In the year 2030, 300 million kilowatt hour, that is still in shortage. And we would like to increase by threefold. And if there is good information, please make a proposal to us. And we will welcome your proposal. And what is operating right now? We have been providing to 7,000 or so outlets. So that would be equivalent to 71,000 households of electricity usage. And today's summit has a theme, the renewables. What is the effect of introducing renewables, trying to overcome the energy crisis we are facing right now? So energy conservation, energy production, and energy procurement from the outside. All these are relevant, especially number 1 and number 2, energy conservation and energy production, trying to bring down the electricity tariff levels. If we don't use, then the cost will come down. So as much as possible, we will reduce the usage of energy, and in the longer term, we will have the off-site PPA being provided energy from the outside at a fixed price. In the longer term, that would bring stability to the cost levels. This is what we are discussing right now and persuading the top management that we should go for all these, and we are asking for the budget to make it happen. Now, in the 2030, the Green Challenge 2050, this is the interim target in the year 2030, and our department has formulated the roadmap. What will happen to the usage of electricity going forward? As I have already mentioned, new products have to be provided to our customers, and in order to make this happen, about 20% more of electricity per shop could be consumed because there are new products and ingredients, and we have a lot of signages inside the shop introducing new products to our customers. So per outlet, per shop, we have reached the bottom, but still there could be increase in energy cost per shop. So with all these 3 pillars of energy conservation, energy production, and procurement from the outside, the point, especially the third factor, to utilize the off-site PPAs and procuring from the outside. If not, we will not be able to achieve the target of reduction. And that would also be dependent upon how much we can reduce the energy intensity and the emission intensity. I have been explaining about Scope 2 for the supply chain, but moving on to Scope 3, we need to take on the challenge as well. The bento, the lunchbox suppliers that we have the business with, and we are providing advice to the other suppliers, the factories and logistics centers. How can you bring down the cost? How can you make cheaper? And the logistics will also matter very much. And also PET bottle to be recycled, as well as packaging materials to do away with plastics. And in autumn last year, the hydrogen being used as an energy for producing coffee. And about 30,000 or so for the elementary and the junior high school, the pupils, we had to have the schools and classes being held for SDGs. I have given you a rundown. So going for the next 50 years of business, try to reconcile economic value and social value. We would like to continue to be a presence which was useful to the customers in the community. With the Green Challenge 2050 declaration, we would like to work closely with the franchise merchants in bringing solutions to the societal the challenges. But in realizing all these, I would like to solicit your kind support and also any proposals as well as opinions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shiba. Next, we would like to hear from MUFG. Mr. Suzuki Yosuke will introduce the initiatives of MUFG. He is Deputy Head of the Sustainable Business Division at the MUFG Bank and President of Representative Director of the MUFG Sustainable Energy. Mr. Suzuki, please. Well, let me begin. Thank you very much for giving me this time and this valuable opportunity today. Thank you to the audience and thank you very much to the Renewable Energy Institute. First of all, I would like to talk about the fact that I am belonging to the Sustainable Business Division, and also I am belonging to the MFD Sustainable Energy company as well. So I am wearing two hats as I proceed with this presentation today. This is somewhat embarrassing, but this is my introduction. I entered the bank in 2003, and I've been working in structured finance as well as project finance over the years. And I have had engagement with many of you present here today, as well as with REI. I have been involved in renewable energies project financing for a long time over the years. And now I have another responsibility at the MUFG Sustainable Energy. So there is increasing engagement. Here, this is showing MUFG's framework for promoting sustainable business. Within the holdings organization, we have the sustainability committee, and the Sustainable Business Department is providing support for the whole group in this area. So on the part of the Sustainable Business Department, we are belong to the solutions headquarters in promoting the sustainable initiatives. So we are involved in various initiatives. On the right-hand side, there is a solutions product department as well. Project finance is included in this area. Today, I would like to cover these topics. Now, you might wonder why a banker is coming to such a conference as a speaker. So I will be speaking from a different perspective. I'm not going to be too rigid, but rather there are two pillars that I'd like to cover with you. First is the MUFG's initiatives as a financial institution. Second is MSAS or MUFG Sustainable Energy initiatives as an operator. So I shall be speaking from these two perspectives. Now, let me talk about MUFG's initiative as a financial institutions. 7-Eleven, Shiba-san has also covered their initiatives. MUFG has also made the declaration for carbon neutrality. We made a declaration in 2021. somewhat behind 7-Eleven. But by 2030, we are aiming to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions from our own operations by 2030 and achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions in our investment and financing portfolio by 2050. There are three commitments that we have made contribute to achieving the Paris Agreement of 1.5 degree target, supporting a smooth transition to a decarbonized society, and actively contributing to the realization of a sustainable society. Now, the first point is MUFG's initiatives as a financial institution. This is composed of two parts. First is for MUFG's greenhouse gas emissions reduction efforts will be explained. This is rather simple explanation. Reducing our own emissions, we have set forth with net zero target for 2030. Obviously, energy saving efforts will be made, and we are converting to renewable energies for the electricity that we are contracting for. And in 2024, in the run-up toward 2030, or in the 2026, we have achieved the 26 target already in 2024. In a nutshell, we are successfully reducing our emissions as a group. As you can see on the left-hand side, the group currency in Danamon Bank, these are subsidiaries overseas, are showing emissions that are declining. The right-hand side is one example that we are showing. Through partnership, we are introducing state-of-the-art technologies. AGC partnership is a good case in point. We have incorporated the building integrated photovoltaics. So that is all in terms of the bank's initiatives. Next, I'd like to talk about our portfolio approach as we are a bank, as a company. Now, in terms of financial institutions, we have branches as well as headquarters and data centers, areas where scope 1, 2 emissions are identified. But since we are financial institutions, there is a significant impact in the area of scope 3 because we are providing financing to many customers through engagement. We hope to make contribution in terms of GX. In terms of engagement approach, as you can see below, we are providing proposals. We also have a dialogue with government organizations as well. Solutions are being promoted. Needs and challenges are also understood together with our customers, and as you can see below, and together with the customers, engagement strategy is formulated as well. And we are providing support in terms of transition support plan. And as you can see on the right-hand side, we are providing support for implementation as well as confirmation of effectiveness. So we are involved in consultations as well in terms of actual solutions. In terms of our activities as financial institutions, I would like to introduce the following numbers. In terms of engagement, this is the track record we have for financial support. We are a financial institution, so we're providing financing to many companies. And in terms of sustainable finance, a specific target has been set by 2030 in terms of sustainable finance. 100 trillion yen is our target. If we identify the environmental area, that is 50 trillion yen in terms of accumulated financing we are providing as sustainable financing. This is how we are working as a bank. When we formulated the plan, it was the original target was 50 trillion. we felt that it is a far-reaching goal, but at the end of last year, against the 100 trillion yen overall target, we have already achieved a milestone of 50 trillion yen. In terms of environmental area, we have already achieved half in 2025 against the target for 2030, which is 50 trillion yen. In terms of the 24.6 trillion yen, please look at the breakdown below. Green loans, transition loans are included. These are the type of financing we are providing so that green transition initiatives can be promoted by us. 9.4 trillion yen is also mentioned. This is relating to renewable energies project financing. This is also one unique capability of the MUFG. As you can see on the right-hand side, renewable energy project financing track record is shown in the past 10 years on a cumulative basis. According to our calculation, we have top level of track record on the part of MUFG. So we are providing financing. We are also engaged with customers in driving support for green transportation transformation. We feel this is the mission for us as a financial institution. Now I'm going to change the subject significantly. I would like to talk about MSAS activities. This is a subsidiary MUFG Sustainable Energy. On the part of MUFG, as you can see on the left and bottom, MUFG Sustainable Energy is one subsidiary that we have in our group. It was established in 2023, that's 3 years ago. Currently, I am the representative of this entity. It is a 100% subsidiary of the bank, MUFG Bank. Let me talk about the activities we're involved in. We are holding renewable energy assets. We are also holding projects as well as selling our stake. We are involved as a GP in project finance as well. On the part of banks, we are limited in terms of the activities we can engage in because of the bank law, banking business law. But this is being approved as business that we can pursue. You can see on the right-hand side what we are doing. We're working with partners to hold renewable energy assets. This is making investment in equity. And also joint GP, establishing a fund and making contribution to promoting renewable energy business. We have transactions with many customers. Therefore, if there is a need for our customers to introduce renewable energies, we'll provide support to link the stakeholders. Next, I'd like to talk about the MSAS strategy. And there are two aspects, generating and connecting. Now, let me elaborate further on these points. So I think this area is more familiar for you. I'd like to talk about the MSAS actual investments that we have made. First one is which is joint investment with partners in power generation projects that demonstrate additionality. This is with the Clean Energy Connect. It was a joint investment that was made in this project for data center. It's a distributed low voltage solar power plant. It's 40 megawatt in terms of capacity. As I have already explained, PV generation has room to grow, and I think that is also the case for low voltage distributed solar power plants. Right-hand side is the second example. This is a PV plant that is already being established where we have taken a stake. So as a financial institution, you might feel that we have purchased a stake in this business. This is a photovoltaic power plant in Fukushima. As we participated, we also established a citizens fund as well. Therefore, there was a strong need by the local communities to be involved in this project. So we provided an opportunity for them to participate through a fund. And by so doing, we also participated in this effort. Together with the local communities, we are working on the ground to promote renewable energies. These are strengths that can be brought to bear as a financial institution. Next is the third example, the last example in terms of power generation. This is a fund we have established for battery storage. Please look at the right-hand side. On the right-hand side, Kansai, Kinden, and MFG are involved. MFG is sustainable energy in this case, and the three companies are GPs. We have established a fund, and below that there are LP investors. This is providing opportunity to invest and participate in such an initiative. And this is the first fund for this purpose. And SPC is making investment. There are many companies under the SPC to develop battery storage. So we have been able to provide a framework to enable this process. Kansai Electric as well as Kinden have come out with press releases for this initiative. Now, please look at the left-hand side, which is showing the significance of this project. As already mentioned today, securing a balancing capacity, utilizing solar power, which is very significant. Secondly, providing investment opportunities for investors. We are providing the fund where LP investors can invest. In the absence of such a scheme, there will not be an opportunity to invest in such areas, so we have enabled this process. Third is co-creation with partners. With Kansai Electric Power, know-how can be brought to bear, and offtake contracts are also included. The battery storage operation technologies can be brought to bear as well, and Kinden has the ability to construct. And the financing part has been provided by our MEFG. So that is how we are promoting this business by making contribution amongst the stakeholders. Today, there are other members from my company present here today. So if you are interested, please let us know during the networking session to follow. Now, the last part will be covered. We are also involved in the connecting of renewable energy. We are providing support for the users in 4 steps. First of all, analysis of electricity consumption or visualization. Zero Board is a company we're working with. Credit balance as step 2. Step 3 is implementation plan. Group for RC is working with us in this area. And upon implementation, MUFG, sustainable energy, and Z Energy is working together. These are areas where we can be useful. So in terms of connectivity, let me elaborate further. This is the image of what we are trying to achieve. In the center, MEFG is situated, and number 1 should be referred to. Because we are a financial institution, we have transactions with many customers. We also provide the consultation through dialogue as well. We have many customers that we work with. And we are trying to promote a dialogue in terms of renewable energy transition. Power mix is also subject to consultation, and that is number 2 for power generators. We also have our own power generation asset, but with the renewable energy power generators, we have a network where we can make introductions. We don't have a retail capability. That is the reason why we are engaging with retail entities so that we can connect the ecosystem together in promoting this business. In terms of investment as well as in terms of connectivity, I'm sure that you will find your place in this framework. We are neutral in terms of positioning, and we hope that in this framework we will be able to provide value. So let me summarize my talk today. There are two roles that we are fulfilling as a financial institutions: engagement with the clients and financial support, and sustainable finance, as well as environment-related financing is provided. This is how we can provide support. And a unique positioning for us is that we are also a business operator. That is the reason why for participating in this meeting, we can provide the support in terms of power generation as well as connectivity. By so doing, we hope to continue to make a contribution. We want to become the driving force that moves the world forward. With that, I'd like to conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suzuki. Next, I would like to turn to Huric from Huric Energy Solution, CEO Mr. Yoshida Koki, who will be introducing what they are doing at Huric.
では吉田様、よろしくお
So,
願いいたし
Mr.
ます。
Yoshida, please. Thank you. I am with Huric Energy Solution. My name is Yoshida. I am pleased to be given this opportunity here today. Thank you very much for inviting me. Today, what I would like to explain to you is the endeavors at Huric Group, energy conservation, especially for electricity tariffs. I would like to focus on electricity cost. To start with, let me introduce the Huric Group. The Huric sounds rather modern, but it was actually established in 1957. This was a real estate management company under the Fuji Bank. In 2008, we have changed to Huric, and we have been listed on the first section of the Tokyo Stock Exchange. And we have leasing and renting of the buildings. So we are the owners of buildings, and we lease to tenants. We used to have a lot of real estate to do with the banks. So many of the properties are nearby train stations and subway stations. We are close to stations, and we are also close to the future. Because Japan is hit by a lot of natural disasters, we would have built a earthquake-resistant and seismic designed the buildings. So we're trying to go for more of disaster-resistant type of properties. It is mostly office buildings and commercial buildings that we own. The reason why you do not hear about Huric is we are not really catering to general consumers. We do not have condominiums that have been built. And we are also going for leasing the buildings, and we say for Hotoke, that is to say Kanko, which is tourism, and for inbounds and hotels and inns. And Koreisha stand for elderly, and Kankyo stand for environment, and Kyoiku for education. we have hotels. The Gate Hotel is the brand. And on the left-hand side, you can see the Gate Hotel in Yokohama, which was built last year. We have Hulic Hufu, 11 such Hufu Japanese inns, which are catering to more of a wealthy the customers. And on the right-hand side, you can see the business catering to the elderly. The nursing homes have been built and owned by Hulic. We also have environment-related the business, the branding of the types of buildings. So not just consuming energy, but we would like to minimize the CO2 emissions. Even constructing the buildings will consume energy and emit the CO2, and we would like to minimize such emissions. The new business that we are trying to go for is the wooden high-rise buildings. We have built this in Ginza, Hulic, and New Ginza 8. And as for solar and micro hydro, we do have such power at the plants. So we are producing electricity as well. Lastly, on education, from several years ago, we have introduced this new business together with the Riso Education, the group. We have acquired this company, and having equity relationship, we are trying to develop buildings for children education. More generally, when it comes to educational facilities, we have tenants for the one whole of the building, and you usually have cram schools and juku and so forth. But on the right-hand side, the case, all the floors are being tenants related to education. So we have one-stop service for children education with the whole of the building. So let me now introduce and explain about our energy-related business. I am with the Hulic Energy Solutions. And within the Hulic Group, we have this energy company, which was established in February of 2025. 12 employees. It is a very small company right now. But as a main business, we here are investing and developing the power plants as well as the storage, the businesses, and we are providing services. And after building the power plants, we are managing such facilities as well. And just Friday last week, in the northern Kanto area, there has been torrential rain, and we work with the management company to check whether any trouble with the power generation plants. Even though it was a holiday, we have been working vigorously. The third is decarbonization support business, not just selling electricity, but we are providing support for our customers going decarbonization. So let me now explain about renewable energy-related efforts. So when it comes to energy conservation, back in 2014, we have developed solar PV at the plant under the FIT system. As of 2014, the electricity being generated by solar PV, we wanted to utilize the electricity at the headquarters. So we have achieved off-site ZEB, or zero-emission building, at the head office of Hulic. And as the unit price have come down, we have been switching from FIT to non-FIT system. And in 2023, we have participated in RE100 program. At the level of 2023, for RE100, we have already achieved 100%. And for Scope 2 is the target for tenant buildings. We have not been able to achieve 100% the renewables, but we would like to achieve 100% renewables for the tenants as well in 2029. One of the salient characteristics for Hewlett is we would like to purchase additionality related RE, the renewable energy, and we would like to go for the RE100 for the whole the process. And we produce our own energy and we utilize our own energy. And that is what we are going for. Of the companies who are participating today are trying to introduce the renewable energy as an user. And you would ask utilities to provide renewables, but we already have our own power plants, and we produce the energy ourselves and supply such energy to our buildings. So we are insisting on additionality element, as I have already described. In 2019, RE100, we have participated in the RE100 programs, and we have started developing the power plants. And every year, 20 to 30 megawatts of new additional power plants are being built. And in 2023, we have achieved RE100%. And as of today, for Kanto, Tohoku, and Chubu districts, about 100 power plants are being owned by Hewlett. And as you can see with the photographs, the mega solar with not the special high voltage, but in the flat lands, we are producing and developing power plants. So we have high voltage power plants mostly. As for the other endeavors, we are owners of buildings. So rooftops are also available. So we actively install the solar PV panels. And these are for distribution warehouse, where there is a lot of area available. So the rooftop is being utilized to the fullest. For renewable PV, we often are consulted by other companies with having so many solar panels. Can you utilize everything? Is the question we are often asked. We have also introduced battery storage, and we would flow back excess electricity. We are retail business, so we will purchase the excess electricity and to be supplied to the other businesses. So we are trying to achieve the balance as a whole for the whole group. And these are also some of the new examples. This is the mini hydros. Many companies are worried that the solar PV is the variable type of intermittent type of the energy, but we also own hotels and inns, so we do need support for the nighttime electricity consumption. So what we have done is to invest into hydropower. So it is smaller hydro, but 200 kilowatt hydro power plant. It is on par in terms of power generation as the high voltage power plant. And developing hydropower is quite difficult. We need to consult with the local community. We need to consult with the different rights owners, the stakeholders. But we are now able to make it easier. So one mini hydro per year is the progress we see today. Now let me turn to the renewables PPA. What is the advantage of this system? The PPA, what may be the challenge is to purchase electricity in the longer term. And inside the company, it is very difficult to have a buy-in, to have an agreement. So looking at the inflation and the fuel cost going up, the fixed price is a big advantage that we could sell to our top management as well. So the renewables PPA and the general electricity supply are being compared in this chart. In the renewables PPA, what would be challenging is how to utilize electricity to the optimum level. And as I have already explained, for the hydropower and for solar PV, it is often fluctuated because of the sunshine, the weather at the levels. You need to strike a balance between the demand and supply. When there is a shortage, you need to purchase from somewhere. In terms of electric utilities, when there is a shortage, they could buy from the market or to have a sharing contract with the other utilities. So how to procure the electricity in shortage? Let me explain on this. The salient feature of the PPA is, as you can see with this the graph, the solar PV supply and demand may not be really matching. And outside, a lot of sunshine, and you have a lot of power being generated. But when it comes to 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening, the sunshine is less. That means that the solar PV is no longer working, so you need to purchase from the market. Now, I have made a research. The electricity charge or price level is 55 yen. And Mr. Ishida mentioned about 20 yen level in the market. But with the extreme heat, the demand is going up sharply. So looking at the electricity market, it is becoming more and more expensive. So as one user and one electricity generator, we need to strike a good balance. This is what we need to consider from now onwards. Now, this is looking at the variable energy, how to absorb and provide the flexibility. What we need to do mainly is to try to distribute the power source and have a stable supply of electricity to be combined and to adjust with the battery and to have multiple number of users to try to levelize the demand. So distributed the power source and aggregate is what you already know. But with the PPA, to have one power plant and one demand source would mean unstable because of the weather fluctuations. So with a distributed power source, the advantage is having multiple number of power plants. You can levelize the fluctuation of the power plants. There could be some incidents occurring more recently. For example, if there are thefts, that could stop the power source. But if you have multiple number of power at the plant, so you can distribute and diversify the risks as well. And the other point is to combine with a stable power source to try to secure enough power supply. By introducing hydropower, you don't have to have any aggregator or adjuster to speak of. And lastly, with the distributed power source, if you cannot really reduce the fluctuation, you would be able to level off in terms of demand with addition of the batteries. And trying to levelize, we are building owners, and we have a lot of buildings under our portfolio. But during the day offs, the holidays and weekends, the buildings will no longer be working, meaning that there will be excess electricity. And such excess electricity could be provided to the hotels or commercial the buildings where the shops are open on the weekends. We will be able to levelize the demand. Having one power plant and one demand user, rather than that, if you have n power plants and n number of demand the users, it would be easier and flexible to try to adjust and strike a balance. And I believe the renewable PPAs are a good model. But what about the CO2 emission? For the solar PVs, the excess electricity, how to make adjustments? And the batteries, we believe, will be the optimum model. In 2025 and onwards, we have decided to invest into batteries. And by the year 2034, in 10 years, we have already decided to invest 100 billion yen. And this is the track record of developing the battery storage. These are the storage sites to be connected to the grid. So the renewable power sources are not really combined. But with electricity trading, with a connection to the grid, we can strike a balance. The other point is the solar PVs with the battery storage being added, and this is quite simple. And last year, this is a solar PV power plant completed last year, and you can see the chart at the bottom. The blue line shows the sunshine, the volume, and the gray is the temperature, and the yellow shows the power being generated. And as the sunshine goes down, with the battery storing the power generated during the daytime, even with the sunshine becoming less, we are able to provide electricity to our buildings at a level the volume. And it used to be 50%, but now the performance has gone to 65% and more. Why is it not 100%? This is on per day basis of transaction. And during the winter time, when there is a snow, and the snow is accumulated, solar PVs cannot really store the electricity. So that is the reason why we have multiple number of the power plants. And lastly, to try to summarize, so the renewables PPA is not just for increasing the renewable energy power generation, but we would like to make efficient use, not in the short term, but in the long term, to achieve stability, to have a robust power system to be built, and that is renewables plus the battery storage. And for renewables to be increased, our company alone will not be sufficient enough. We would like to work in partnership with the other companies in trying to introduce even more renewable energy. I mentioned earlier that we are owning the buildings, and 7-Eleven Japan are our good customers, good partners for us, that they need to use electricity even the nighttime at 24-hour shops. So if we could partner up with 7-Eleven Japan to even have a better use of energy being produced. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yoshida. So very unique initiatives have been introduced. We will be taking a break for 10 minutes at this junction. We will restart at 16.
それでは再開いたします。
So we would like to resume the session. Effect of introducing the corporate PPA. So for on-site PPA and off-site PPA, what are the advantages for the users? We have 3 companies introducing to us the latest developments. Starting with the Chubu Electricity Miraizu from corporate sales department, Renewable Energy Service Division, we will have Mr. Araki.
My name is Araki of Chubu Electric Power Miraizu. I am responsible for planning and developing new services that make use of renewable energy and for providing various forms of support for PPA. Today, under the theme of key considerations for expanding renewable energy adoption, I would like to talk about the benefits of PPA as seen from the supplier's perspective and about how to think about renewable energy procurement going forward. In today's presentation, I will focus on two questions. Why companies are now seeking to procure renewable energies from dedicated generation assets and what needs to be considered when procuring from them. The overall theme of this conference is the impact of renewable energies on overcoming the energy crisis. So rather than simply discussing the adoption of renewables, I would like to include management perspectives, how to secure renewable energies inclusive of the electricity prices and how to use it in risk management. In the latter half of my presentation, I will address three angles: electricity price, volatility risk, securing environmental value, and the coming competition of generation assets. Let me begin by a brief introduction of my company. The Chubu Electric Power Group is an integrated energy company covering power generation, transmission and distribution and retail. Within the group, Chubu Electric Power Miraizu handles not only electricity sales to customers, but also renewable energy procurement and the provision of PPA services. My own department is a Renewable Energy Service Department. It sits within the corporate sales division and working daily with customers' needs to design new renewable energy services. Across the group, we have set a target of expanding renewable capacity by at least 3.2 gigawatts by around 2030, and development is underway to achieve this goal. Now to the main topic. Listening to customers, I would like to pose a question: why is there interest in dedicated generation assets rising now? Please look at the left-hand side on the top, inclusive of Scope 3. There are increasing pressure to disclose information, as mentioned by MFT speaker, inclusive of investment as well as loans. There is a request from the financial institutions. And in terms of supply chain overall, there is added momentum to move toward decarbonization. Now, in terms of environmental value and to procure renewable energy electricity is leading to the increased need for dedicated renewable energy sources. Now, let me talk about the various ways we can provide this. There is CO2-free electricity and physical PPA, which is on-site PPA. In terms of off-site PPA, there is a physical PPA and a virtual PPA as well. Please refer to the materials and your leisure. It isn't as if we can just focus on one area. The different characteristics should be combined together, taking into consideration the type of company as well as the prevailing need for power sources, and appropriate combination should be pursued. Let me give you some example on-site PPA on our company roof. On our company roof to set the PV panels for self-consumption. We are providing services with initial cost zero. This is the actual track record we have in terms of on-site PPA services. Ever since we started the business, we have continued to grow this business. There have been 560 cases and 270 megawatt of installed capacity. On-site PPA examples are shown here. To many customers, we are providing the services. I cannot introduce all such cases. That would be impossible to do, but let me just highlight the major ones. In terms of case studies, I will not go into details in the interest of time. This is for on-site PPI, Kawai, and Katala, as well as Ina, and Doni, and Nihon Thompson. So these are on-site cases where the installation has been made. When the on-site PPA, how the process works is outlined here. First of all, on the left-hand side, on-site basis, if there is a shortage for on-site PPA, then solar carport is often added to augment the shortage. But still, there could be difficulty in achieving the renewable energy target, but there could be a shortage of land. Then off-site PPA can be considered. Next is a solar carport example will be provided. At the car park, the renewable energy PV is constructed, and there is added convenience of having a roof on top of the cars in the car park. Next, off-site PPA will be explained. This is utilization of renewable energy that has been generated outside one's own premise. This is not just procuring renewable energy from outside, but we are listening to customers' needs. There are different classifications that I would like to share with you now. But prior to that, let me talk about the actual track record of off-site PPA. In 2025, you can see a significant increase. This is because of virtual PPA service has begun. Now, in terms of power source, there are 580 and 700 gigawatt or 700 million kilowatt hour power generation has been provided to our customers. Next, let me give you an explanation regarding specific cases. We will procure the electricity to provide to our customers. For example, Sugi Holding is shown in the middle. From various power generations, it is being provided to different outlets, so it's end-to-end. We are aggregator making a coordination in providing this electricity. As mentioned by Ishida-san, this is the agri-voltaic. And this is growing the Chinese chives, shiitake mushrooms, and lemons for OMC. And Nihon Thompson is growing mushrooms, and apparently they are serving the shiitake mushrooms in their cafeteria. And there are also pomegranate and olives and blueberries also grown as well. Agricultural support is also an area where this initiative can provide support. Next, I'd like to talk about the utilization of a company's own idle land. The PV facility can be introduced, and on an off-site basis, power can be procured. Right-hand side is Nichiasu case. There is battery storage, and in terms of emergency to the neighbors, power can be provided. This is good communication between the company and community in utilization of this idle land. Next, I'd like to talk about utilizing the roof of a warehouse. Not just for self-consumption. After full utilization, the remaining power can be purchased by us to be provided to other customers. These two examples were started as self-consumption, but now the excess is being provided elsewhere. This is the customer participation type, which is received very favorably. Amongst the customers, even with the PV, there could be excess. That means there is also a need for further renewable energy, and this is in Shizuoka in Enshu district. Manufacturing companies are clustered here, and customers are participating, and renewable energy is pursued as part of a whole supply chain. This is also integrated supply chain for Tokai Rika. Now, the purchaser as well as Tokai Rika are working together to procure renewable energy. This is resonating very well as well, and we are also receiving inquiries for multiple such initiatives. Next, I would like to talk about the virtual PPA. Left-hand side is wind power generation. Right-hand side is virtual PPA for hydro. Biomass off-site virtual PPA are being provided. In this way, through these power sources, we are providing environmental value. In terms of PV, virtual PPA is also being provided, although example is not shown here. Now, let me promote what we are doing now. The virtual PPA for the onshore wind power, and also replace of hydro is being promoted as well. So please let us know if you are interested. Now, I am going to focus on the how to utilize such dedicated power generation in order to have offsite PPA, the physical type on the left-hand side, which is physical and offsite, and the right-hand side is virtual type. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but the advantage should be combined for procurement purpose. When the customers introduces the optimal portfolio should be considered. The electricity price was considered. We talked about 50 yen today. Right-hand bottom for physical PPA, the electricity value and environmental value can be fixed, but wheeling will have to be taken into consideration as well as the power generation, but you can fix that. CO2-free and virtual PPA, the electricity value will be variable, but you can either have a fixed environmental value or not. So the combination of variable and fixed procurement can enhance the foreseeability of procurement of renewable energies for any given company. Virtual PPA is likely to receive attention going forward. This is because in terms of physical parcels, 30 minutes balance of supply and demand will be required. Of course, you can use battery storage for adjusting, but for 1 hour, 30 minutes, balancing will be required. Beyond that, decarbonization will be taken into consideration CO2-free or virtual PPA can be utilized for this purpose to augment. Now, in terms of reducing the electricity price variability, let me give you one example here. As you can see on the left-hand side, with the Strait of Hormuz situation as well as the Ukraine situation and other geopolitical risk coming to the fore, means that there will be volatility. For physical PPA, the electricity and environmental value can be fixed. That means that, as you can see on the right-hand side, you can stabilize the impact. This is an advantage. By so doing, the customers can have a better foreseeability in terms of business planning as well as controlling cost. So the partial fixing of electricity price can be an advantage. Second example will now be provided. This is a stable procurement of environmental value. The non-fossil fuel certification for FIT. Every year, this certificate contract rate is increasing about 10% every year. So that means that in 2030, we should be reaching 100%. We don't know whether this is going to happen, but if it's a straight line increase, then the environmental value may not be available in a stable manner. This is also a risk we have to consider. But as I mentioned at the outset, decarbonization in the supply chain is subject to request by financial institutions. So we have to realize the objective in order to secure the environmental value on a stable manner. One way is to procure electricity from dedicated power generation facilities. Now, thirdly, risk diversification will be mentioned. Please look at this from the right-hand side. From a dedicated procurement means that if there is suspension because of accidents, then procurement will be disabled. That means that the objective will no longer be met. That is a possibility, as you can see on the left-hand side. By having retail intervene on the customer's side, according to load curve, they can procure the appropriate renewable energy, such as photovoltaic, wind, as well as biomass, and others. And then, even if there were some issues regarding power generation, the risk can be mitigated. For power generators, I believe there is also an advantage as well. For the customer, there will be a contract one by one. This is cumbersome. But in our case, we can intervene as an aggregator. That means that contract conclusion as well as daily operation wise will be managed in a single window. This is also an advantage that should be emphasized. Next issues. The ideal sites are declining, and we have heard that installation costs have been declining, but in fact, every year there has been installation cost increase, several percentage points every year. And however, the lead time for dedicated tools is longer, so you cannot have this immediately. Availability is not immediate. Therefore, the renewable energy procurement plan should be clarified in your company and the appropriate price level, as well as appropriate type of power source and the time frame in which the electricity is required should be identified in advance. By having customers procure this, this will lead to renewable energy development as well. In the absence of customers purchasing this, the development activities of power generation should fail. Therefore, We would like to increase this initiative together with the customers, for this purpose, we are promoting a decarbonization project together. We hope that we can continue to work together to further increase decarbonization in the future. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Araki. Next, I would like to invite NTT Anode Energy, the Energy Distribution Business Division, Energy Distribution Service Department, the head of the section in charge of decarbonization design. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. My name is Sato from NTT Anode Energy. I am grateful for being given this wonderful opportunity. So what I would like to speak today is the effect and the case study of introducing renewable energy for my company. So let me very briefly introduce our company and then go into the main topic of the effect of introduction. We have been able to stabilize the price levels, and we have been able to create business opportunity by revitalizing the local economy. And when we try to increase the renewables, the importance is to utilize the existing power plants. Now, let me start by introducing NTT Anode Energy. NTT, more recently, we have changed the makeup of the group, and the name has been changed. So we have NTT Docomo business, and we have the East Japan and West Japan for NTT. We have NTT Data and also the real estate business, NTT Urban Solutions, and we are at the very right, the NTT Anode Energy. We are responsible for energy-related businesses. So about the NTT Anode Energy itself. So we generate the green electricity, and we aggregate, and we also store energy, and we deliver the energy. We have a surveillance company as well, and we have Green Power Investment who invest into the power at the plants. And we only had 24 employees right at the beginning, but we have increased that to 2,700. On the right-hand side, you can see the salient feature. We have 320 the renewable energy power plants, and we have 2.8 billion kilowatt-hour of being power generated. We also have the battery equipments, 5 gigawatt-hour. We also sell electricity through ENET, 8.8 billion kilowatt-hour. And we surveil and supervise the NTT-related electricity equipments, about 200,000 such equipments, and we have 1,850 engineers. And we would like to go for sustainable and carbon reduction, and renewables is something right at the center. More recently, we are asked frequently why NTT is involved with the renewables. So I have created this slide. Of course, NTT started as Nippon Telegraph and Telephone. So in the remote areas like mountain areas and the remote islands, we have established the solar the power plants to deliver the communication to the remote areas. And NTT facilities have been receiving these equipments and facilities, and the name has changed recently to Anode Energy. Going into the main topic, so REI have asked me to introduce about the effect of introducing renewables. So I have rethinked what we have done. So the CO2 emission will, of course, come down. And trying to realize sustainability and improve on the enterprise value. And for the whole society, of course, we can decarbonize. But apart from these values, what are the other values that we can see? There are two at the top, that electricity and environmental values are created, so we are not really swayed by the fluctuation of fuel prices or market prices that would lead to stability of energy cost and stability of the management, and we will also be able to achieve energy security. And another issue and point is to contribute to the local economy. We can create new business opportunities. And when we increase such opportunities, we can revitalize the local economy. And I will give you 4 examples. One is about stabilizing the energy cost. So, for stable energy cost, if I could give you more details, looking at the general electricity tariffs is broken down into the left-hand side chart, the basic the charge, the charge based upon the volume of usage, and you also have non-fossil fuel certificate. So there are variable factor depending on the usage of electricity. And for electricity tariffs, the fuel cost will change and market price change. Then the electricity charges would have to vary. And on top of that, you have non-fossil fuel certificate trying to go for greener electricity. And that is the usage of electricity times the unit price. And as the market level goes up, there will be increase in electricity charges. So, looking at the electricity market price, how they vary. Of course, there has been Iranian the war happening, and more recently, it has gone up. And before that, there has been Russia-Ukraine the war, and Europe is trying to move away from pipeline oil and gas from Russia. And then in the year 2020, in the wintertime, because of the weather fluctuations and the wind situation in Europe, especially, there has been conspicuous increase. So you can see these fluctuations. And in terms of fuel cost, it is also fluctuating from time to time. And the physical PPA at trying to fix the price, which has been mentioned several times. And as Mr. Shiba has already mentioned, so we have also been involved in physical PPA. Try to fix on the long-term fuel cost. And this is something very important. And this would fix the price. And inserting this factor, then the solar PV and the unit price is being fixed. Then you'll be able to reduce the cost involved with the solar PV power generation, trying to maximize the advantage. We would like to increase the portion of the fixed price. The one thing we can do is to introduce batteries. Another thing we can do is to introduce other power sources, but there are, of course, challenges. So let me also explain to you some of the case studies. The first case is the battery plus the solar power. The FIT-based solar PV power plants, and we have added battery storage facility. And at This, at the moment, we are able to charge the electricity in the time zone where curtailment is being done. Then the renewable energy could be increased because we can discharge in the time zone where the market price is high or the demand is high. Now, other case is utilizing other power source, a power source other than solar PV. This is a case of Kawasaki Mirai Energy, the city of Kawasaki and Tokyo, and Kawasaki, the credit union company, are involved. This is the waste and rubbish incineration facility. This is the waste power generation. And utilizing this as a power source, we have created a menu and structured the energy at the price. The menu is that it has nothing to do with the fluctuation of the market price. Even with what is happening in Iran or the Middle East, that has no impact on the price levels, and which means that there is a stable supply of electricity to public facilities such as schools and the local governments and so forth. Why can we do this? It's because of the higher percentage of renewable energy. This is waste incineration facility being the power source. So not introducing physical PPA, we will be able to contain the cost. So let me turn to another factor, which is creating business opportunities for the local economy. I have given you some of the abstract chart. When you have renewable energy generation business, there are companies who are procuring such electricity, and there is a business relationship. And of course, renewable energy business, so you have employment, and you do have investment, and you do provide income for tax and revenue to the local governments, which are a good economic effect. And you also have any support and so forth, and which would lead to solution to many of the local challenges, and the economic effect being brought to the local community with the support provided. Then we can revitalize the whole community, and this would be very good. For the local residents, money itself cannot revitalize the economy. So for the economic effect should be turned into more of a substantive value. And you need the knowledge, you need expertise and know-how. With those involved in renewable power generation, trying to create a value which is different from fixing the fuel cost. There will be new business value being created. The second case for this is, as Mr. Ishida has already introduced this case, this is in Kumamoto Prefecture, Waita district. There is a geothermal power plant, about 5,000 kilowatts scale. And this is a business being owned and operated by the local community. And the revenue is utilized for revitalizing the local economy. And the local residents would like to remodel an old facility for or exchanges with the various residents in the community. and electricity being generated are being supplied to the various businesses and various towns. And if NTT Group capability could be utilized, that would lead to even bigger effect. So we are considering this, and we would like to work closely with this business. And this could lead to a better effect for the whole community. Another example is the wind farm, Tsugaru. This is one of the largest case of onshore wind farm in Japan, in Aomori Prefecture, being operated by Green Power Investments. There has been a health detriment because of the hay and rice husks being accumulated. And this project utilized hay as well as rice husks to generate power. And with the renewable energy-related business being involved, new values are created and also being able to reduce health damages as well as transportation, the detrimental effects. Let me give you a completely different case, which is long-term usage of existing power plants in expanding renewables. For renewables, there are additionality elements trying to create the new plants that are being mentioned more significantly. But as a FIT, a subsidy system, will be ending. And the projects with more than 20 years of a track record, if it is to be by 2036, then in just 5 years, if the FIT duration is over, and those who have been operating under the FIT system goes out of business, meaning that there will be dramatic reduction of the renewables. We need to rather increase the renewables. So the power plants are being operated right now need to be retained and continued. So we need to make efforts. But when the FIT system ends, whether the renewable power generation continues or not, with those companies who operate several mega solars, they are, of course, planning ahead to try to retain those facilities. But what about smaller investors, smaller operators? They would have a hard time. The power plants which are not operated properly may increase, so they would become nuisance to the local community. And we need to bring solution to these issues. And those which can be continued, you need to continue and preserve those power plants, and who are no longer good to be in service needs to be dismantled and removed. So this is where we thought that we could help and support. So we are trying to go into what is called the repowering project. For repower, we need to make assessment of the power plants, and we need to have construction works for repowering. We need funding as well. How can we provide the necessary funding? And somebody needs to purchase the facility, so how to provide such services, and also the maintenance services. So everything included, we would like to provide repowering as a project, as a service. And when we can repower the existing power plants, we would like to supply the electricity. And for the advantage of repowering is, in terms of additionality, in terms of RE100, repowering is something good, but there is a big challenge, sustainability. The existing power plants to be made cleaner, so it would be sustainable. And we would like to make proper assessment to assess whether the existing power plant should be continued or should be dismantled. And we would like to pick those who are quite safe and clean. So in terms of essential point, just like building new power plants, to retain existing power plants will be also important, and that would contribute also in expanding renewable energy going forward. So we are doing on a trial basis right now, bit by bit, to trying to gather the power utilities who could collaborate with us. I forgot to mention, we will be gathering solar PV plants if we are to have repowering, and for certain community and district, we hope that we will be able to come up with good cases in terms of deliverability. And if you are interested, please contact us so that we can work with you. And this has also been reported in the newspaper, in Nikkei newspaper. So that is all from me for now. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
佐藤様、ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much, Mr. Sato. Next, we will welcome Mr. Miyake Seiya, President and Representative Director of the Renewable Energy Promoting Organization. Mr. Miyake, please.
三宅様、よろしくお願いします。
Hello, everyone. My name is Miyake of Renewable. This is my title, maximizing self-consumption with the off-grid system. I think we have been talking about not on-site but PPA, but I would like to speak from a different perspective as the last speaker for this part. I'd like to introduce my company first. Now it's called the Renewable Energy Promoting Organization. We have been established 3 years ago. We have established a company that can only promote renewable energy. We have 24 people in our company. You said that you started with 24 people, so over the years we will become 2,000 as well. So the company has only just been established. I'd like to talk about the repo storage. Renewable energy promotion is not just asking for subsidies, but we have to be more autonomous and independent. That is our concept. Because cost is declining and perspectives of how to use renewable energies is changing. In the past, we were focused on FIT. Our parent company is an aggregator, but on our part, I'd like to talk about off-grid repo storage. I was involved in nuclear power before. I was an engineer. So this is a business that I've been promoting, which used to be my hobby too. Let me talk about the repo storage. This is based on self-consumption. Renewable energies of solar PV is the focus. Self-consumption is the most effective utilization of renewable energy because there's no grid transmission cost. Cost-wise, it's more advantageous, and we're using battery storage. Renewable energy is volatile and it's difficult to use up the whole amount that is generated. That is the reason why we are also promoting battery storage. Our mission is to enable everyone to generate their own electricity, to provide abundance of being able to use electricity freely. So self-sufficiency in Japan is only 13%. This is the situation prevailing in Japan. Renewables positioning has changed. In the past, it was based on decarbonization, but now it is now more focused on security, national security. This is material coming from Mitsubishi Research Institute. This is a national security infrastructure now. And as already mentioned several times, cost price is becoming stabilized, and there's significance in the fact that it is a sovereign energy that is being generated in Japan. That is the reason why there is renewed interest in this area. We are talking about companies today. Let me talk about the challenges for companies. Obviously, decarbonization management is besetting all companies. BCP, as well as increasing electricity cost, is increasingly becoming a challenge. And this can be resolved with an on-site. And that is what we are proposing. Electricity price is going up. This is something that has been mentioned several times today. What is going to happen going forward? According to my view, there is no factors that will lead to price decline. Because demand is increasing, and in 2034, we are going to be beset with the shortage. So it's not just about resources, but supply and demand situation will lead to price increase. This is expected. Therefore, renewable energy's value will increase because you can generate your own energy. But there is also a price decline. This is battery storage. Over the past 10 years, it has been reduced by a factor of 7. And lithium-ion batteries are used in EVs, not so prevalent in Japan, but it is increasing globally. It has gone down to 1/7. You can see that in cell phones as well. The kilowatt-hour price is about 20,000 yen. So the battery price is going down. That means that the stabilization cost of renewable energy, which is intermittent, can be reduced. So this should be effectively utilized. That is the reason why we are calling this the off-grid Miyake model. It isn't as if it was my idea, but off-grid to be used in Japan seems to does not make sense. But we want to bring this into Japan. We do this for households as well as companies as well. First of all, looking at the economics, we are not going to be using subsidies. We want to do away with subsidies. And the investment should be recouped in 7 to 8 years. It is resilient to power outages. But it is off-grid. That means that it doesn't have any relation. It isn't as if it doesn't have any connectivity to the grid because there could be weather conditions needing connectivity to the grid. Next, short installation time. Power generation plant takes time, as already mentioned today, but there are different processes involved in this area. For self-consumption purpose, it can be set up in a very short period, and it doesn't have to connect to the grid. That's why. I don't have time, but I'm just going to highlight the major points in terms of mechanism. Now, self-consumption in the past had to link to the grid because the solar PV was unstable. So unless there is connectivity, you couldn't have self-consumption. But it was connected to the battery storage. With battery storage with inverter through transmission line, there is connectivity. We have to implement measures. Therefore, it will be costly. But in the case of off-grid Miyake model, when it is operating, it's off-grid. So there is no impact to the grid. So the mechanism to allow connectivity to the grid is not required. There is this disadvantage of connectivity to the grid. It was vulnerable to outage because when the grid goes down, the inverter system will also go down at the same time. But even with the self-consumption, When there is an outage outside, it will be suspended. This is true for large-scale systems as well. There isn't much measures for outages. But here in this system, outage outside will not have an impact. It will be designed, and power generation will be for self-consumption, and there will be stabilization using battery storage. The connectivity could be severed, and operation can continue. But we have to make sure there is connectivity to the battery. And this is the basic system of off-grid Miyake model I am applying for a patent. I feel quite embarrassed that it bears my name, but with the connectivity of the power grid, there is a disadvantage. So it will be costly and time-consuming. Therefore, we have to make sure there is no reverse power flow. Cubicle retrofit will be necessary, but it is not necessary for my system. And time is not required. It could take 1 hour for 1 year for a conventional period, but in this system, you can enjoy the advantage quickly because of less time and less cost. For high voltage, after order is received, it takes about 3 months in terms of lead time, as long as customers cooperate after order is received. Why is it cheaper? Let me give you more details. It is related to household use. Certification is very expensive. And in fact, the solar batteries are very expensive, and it is not economical. For the household, certification system is quite unique in Japan. There is unique Japanese products that have been sold. Therefore, it's about 2 or 3 times the global products. This is also related to subsidies. But globally, IEC certified products are available at very low prices, but we cannot use this in Japan. But when there is interconnectivity to the grid, it's not easy because of certification. But we are not going to have interconnectivity, and it's not subject to subsidy. We will not receive any subsidies. Therefore, under these conditions, we can reduce cost, and we can also avoid outage. Let me give you an example. This is Asahi City agriculture cold storage. This is our first project. The customer agreed to install. There is a very high electricity charge for refrigeration, and we installed our system. The blue is the power that is being used, and after the installation is made, it hardly procures any electricity from the grid in the daytime as well as nighttime. And in the winter time, refrigeration is also necessary. But over the year, 93% self-consumption rate was achieved. Now, kilowatt hour cost reduction is very significant, and the investment can be recouped in 8 years in this case. This is with the significant installation of battery storage, but with the adjustment, could be 5 or 6 years. This is for power system. Power system is considering this project. This is also for refrigeration and distribution center. And against the power usage, even with the maximum panel, there is a shortage. But with the battery storage, the investment could be recouped in 7 or 8 years. What happens when the price goes up for electricity? Then the recovery period will be shortened further. Now, there will be initial investment required, but the kilowatt hour is very large, so it is appropriate for PPA as well. So we are keen to work with such companies to apply this to PPA models. We are doing this for residential housing as well in my neighborhood. And I'm told there is hardly any electricity price except for winter. So the solar PV has been installed. And in fact, he was a participant in FIT, but now he has suspended that program. In Japan, PV potential is very high, but it is not being fully utilized, and it is mostly ground-based, 90%, almost 80%. But in Australia, very high prevalence, and 63% is rooftop. In Japan, we have been focused on ground-mounted mega solar. And on the part of the government, they have expectation as well. Mega solar package is very rigorous in terms of regulation, but there is also focus placed on roof-mounted. And that should be the focus going forward. But there are hurdles that must be surmounted. There is the architectural issues because panels are made in glass and it's heavy. So light panels will need to be introduced on our part. Light panels are being used. Pelvis guide is not what you're using, but very thin silicon-based panels are available. And the efficiency is good as silicon. And by using such materials, it can be placed on various locations, various structures. As I mentioned earlier, even with self-consumption, we have to also go through the process in terms of interconnectivity. There could be excess power generated is a good case in point, but using battery storage, we can enable effective utilization. So we would like to increase the rooftop installations going forward. This is from Octo, looking at the demand forecast. Now, power demand is expected to increase, and looking at the industry at the top, you can see that up to 2034 there will be increase driven by data centers. I don't know how much increase is going to be realized, but if we look at the usage, around 60% are for facilities as well as residence. That is where electricity is used. So we should divide the two. For industrial purpose, you can't have a solar PV. You can't have self-consumption near the plant. So that will be a large scale. For example, offshore wind power generation is a good case in point, and thermal power as well as maybe nuclear power will be required as well. But for the facilities as well as residential, I believe that there could be independence generating power for consumption. By so doing, demand can be reduced so that more industrial power can be used. Therefore, autonomous or independence of the power generation by facilities in residential has significant potential. We started with houses. This 24, we started the subsidiary, and it's only been 1 year and a half. The first initial programs were 40 altogether, and all successfully operating. So please take a look on the Instagram. And I'm talking about the successful cases, and I am also on YouTube providing such information. So these are some of the initiatives that we have been promoting. And with that, I would like to conclude. But we have to make sure we're not dependent on subsidies. We're trying to expand the scope of our business in terms of renewable energies. We're looking for partners today. We have ideas. And we have track record, certain track record. Inclusive business, we have to accumulate more successful cases of grid model should be promoted. If you are interested, please let me know. If you are interested to use this, please let us know. With that, I would like to conclude. Thank you very much for today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miyake. Now you have given us your own original case to describe to us the advantages of corporate PPA. Now we would like to move to special address from the SBT, Science-Based Targets Initiative, which certifies the emission reduction target for the global warming, the gases. And the application will start from 2027. From SBT initiative, the lead for Scope 2, who have been responsible for formulating the new standards, we have Mr. Nicholas Fedson. This is a recorded speech.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick, and I work in the SBTi's technical department as the Scope 2 lead. I'm very grateful to Renewable Energy Institute for the opportunity to present to you today the requirements around Scope 2 and electricity in the newly released version 2 of the Corporate Net Zero Standard. For those of you unfamiliar with the Science-Based Targets Initiative, we're a corporate climate action organization that enables companies and financial institutions to play their part in contributing to global climate goals by setting targets consistent with the ambitions of the Paris Agreement. Through SBTi services, companies can pursue third-party validation of the targets they've set to reassure stakeholders that their targets are credible and in line with SBTi's robust requirements. The SBTi was founded in the run-up to the Paris Agreement by the organizations listed on the bottom of this slide. I want to take a moment to outline how the version 2 standard fits into SBTi's new strategy. When the initiative was founded over a decade ago, the challenge was straightforward to state, if not to solve. Get companies to commit to reducing their emissions in line with climate science. Over 13,000 companies have targets today as a result. While our vision remains the same, the world has changed and the strategy has evolved. To continue enabling the private sector to decarbonize to net zero by 2050, the SBTi is shifting from a standard setter primarily focused on validating ambition to a partner in the net zero transition, guiding companies on how to take the most impactful actions within the constraints of highly complex global systems. If you're not familiar with how the SBTi develops standards, we maintain a governance framework called our Standard Operating Procedure for development of SBTi standards, and it details how each of the SBTi standards are created and updated. Each standard is developed through a rigorous multi-stakeholder approach. The SBTi convened 5 expert working groups to support the revision, bringing subject matter experts from across business, civil society, and academia to provide in-depth input on key topics. The final standard was then subject to further revision and approvals by the SBTi's Technical Council. Earlier this year, the SBTi became a community member of ISEAL, the global body that maintains the ISEAL Code of Good Practice for Sustainability Systems, an internationally recognized framework that defines practices for effective and credible sustainability systems. This slide shows the diversity of engagement we had throughout the development of the standard. Nearly 1,800 survey responses submitted during 2 public consultations, over 300 companies participating in pilot testing, over 60 countries represented by survey respondents, and over 100 individuals serving on 5 expert working groups. Now, there are many important introductory elements to the standard, such as requirements around corporate governance of science-based targets, transition plan disclosure and base year assessment, which you can learn about through SBTi's online resources. But we will now move on to the Scope 2 target setting guidance, that's present in the standard. So the first major change from previous versions of the standard is that Scope 1 and Scope 2 are given individual targets. Companies could previously set a combined Scope 1 and Scope 2 target. Scope 2 targets are required to cover 100% of Scope 2 emissions, meaning all emissions from purchased electricity, heat, steam, and cooling. There is optionality in the target setting approach used for electricity. Companies may use absolute emissions reduction targets or low carbon electricity alignment targets. That is a target to increase their low carbon electricity to 100%. Heat, steam, and cooling use an absolute emissions reduction target. For Category A companies that are rapidly increasing their electricity consumption, that means more than 20% in increases in consumption per year, emissions reductions targets for electricity are required. Low carbon electricity is also given a definition in terms of a direct generation emissions threshold. That's 48 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour, which changes to 24 grams per kilowatt hour in 2035. This is based on natural gas power generation fitted with carbon capture and storage that achieves a 90% capture rate today and then a 95% capture rate in 2035. Now, I'm showing this slide just to provide some context for how Scope 2 targets fit into the entire system of targets set out in the standard and how they affect Category A and Category B companies. You can, Category B companies are generally given more optionality in the standard. You can understand what category you fall into using SBTi's online resources. Near-term targets, which are set on 5-year cycles, are required in Scope 1 and 2 for all companies. Near-term Scope 3 targets are required for Category A companies, but are optional for Category B companies. Long-term targets are generally optional for all companies, but some target-setting approaches in Scope 1, like the Asset Decarbonization Plan, trigger a requirement to set a long-term Scope 1 target. Lastly, to set a net zero target, a company must set near and long-term targets across all scopes, and additionally, commit to neutralize residual emissions at the net zero target year. The next part of this presentation will cover the new target implementation chapter with an introduction to it and then a look at what it says about electricity. As I mentioned earlier, the corporate net zero standard marks a shift in SBTi strategy and a new focus on companies' implementation of their targets. Key to this is a new chapter specifically addressing target implementation that focuses on channeling action and investment towards high-impact opportunities. This includes SBTi's positions on how market instruments and project-based approaches can contribute to science-based targets across scopes 1, 2, and 3. The standard structures actions taken to implement targets into an implementation hierarchy. Companies first act at the activity level to reduce emissions directly, where they can. All actions at the activity level reduce emissions in the physical inventory. This means that you're reducing activity levels or changing the physical emissions factor that they're associated with. When emissions arise within shared systems, which the standard calls activity pools, in line with established literature, companies cannot directly influence the physical emissions factor, which is the average of all sources of emissions in the activity pool. But what they can do is act upon that shared system using a market instrument or a project. In certain cases, it may be impossible to act within the system in which a company's emissions arise. Under these circumstances, which are known as structural constraints, companies may take action outside of the system through sector-level action. And enabling actions are a final category of actions that do not themselves reduce emissions, but support future reductions. These might be some forms of investment or advocacy for the low-carbon transition. It would be worth briefly outlining the criteria SBTi has developed for actions, market instruments, and projects in the implementation hierarchy. These are general criteria that are intended to establish the credibility of all implementation actions in the hierarchy. Generally, actions must mitigate emissions from the same activity the company is decarbonizing. They must occur in the same system. They must be quantified conservatively and in a way that is verifiable, uniquely attributed, and avoids double counting. there is also a 12-month vintage limitation for actions. Specific types of actions include market instruments and projects. The criteria for market instruments generally address their purpose as attributional accounting instruments. They allocate low emissions products or units of energy to the company's activities. Lastly, there are criteria for how companies can use project-based approaches to meet their Scope 1, 2, and 3 targets. These approaches should consider leakage and assign outcomes proportionally to both the company's involvement in the project and to the company's presence in the activity pool in which the project reduces emissions. Finally, there are causality and additionality criteria for projects. So, you've had a basic introduction to the implementation hierarchy and a short overview of the criteria for actions and market instruments and projects. The target implementation chapter also includes a section specifically on electricity that operationalizes these general criteria in the context of decarbonization of electricity consumption. So I'm going to present a few of the general criteria and their applications to electricity that are given specific attention. The first idea to explore is how companies should identify when they can take activity pool action through a market instrument. And the condition for activity pool action is that the emissions that are associated with that activity occur in an activity pool. And for electricity, an activity pool is simply the electricity grid. So what's the implication of this? It means that you can only use a market instrument to decarbonize your consumption from the grid, not from non-grid sources like on-site generation, because those emissions don't occur in an activity pool. They are on-site. This sounds obvious, but there are existing issues with companies that use certificates to decarbonize emissions from on-site fossil fuel generation, and those certificates represent low-carbon electricity that's been generated on the grid. So it's worth noting that this idea is being explored by GHG Protocol, though, and it could evolve. Sector-level action corresponds to using market instruments from other grids. As mentioned before, there have to be structural constraints to activity pool action for this to be allowed, which means that there is no low-carbon electricity in the activity pool that can be contracted with. The second idea to explore is how companies should define the boundaries of the activity pools related to their electricity consumption from the grid, so that they can act in the same system that's serving their activities. And that's the system association idea that I mentioned previously. And this is embodied for electricity through a deliverability principle, which requires market instruments to come from generators that could plausibly be delivering electricity to the companies using those market instruments. You might be familiar with deliverability through discussions in the Greenhouse Gas Protocol to update Scope 2 and the existing market boundary criterion, which is based on looser regulatory and political features to define the boundaries from which market instruments can be sourced, and which is associated with problematic claims from generation entirely disconnected from consumption. For example, today, Norway exports several times the volume of guarantees of origin relative to its physical electricity exports to other countries. But there are conditions under which deliverability has some flexibility. Companies can assure deliverability contractually where transmission rights are acquired through a contract that crosses a deliverability region boundary. To allow existing load aggregation practices to continue, a power purchase agreement can consider low-carbon electricity deliverable throughout a wide area synchronous grid in which the project and the company's operations are located. And lastly, legacy contracts are exempted, since there are many existing contracts for low-carbon electricity that should continue to be recognized in a fair way. A final thing to note is that this chapter and the implementation hierarchy in general addresses implementation throughout companies' operations and value chains. So this chapter can be applied to Scope 3, since companies have significant opportunities to act in the electricity systems that their value chains rely on as well. But there's a special question created by the system association criterion for Scope 3. Because companies do not control these sources of electricity consumption, they may not know in which deliverability regions they occur. So when taking action for electricity consumption in Scope 3, companies can apply reasonable boundaries and assumptions based on the information they have to determine where their market instruments should be sourced from. The standard also categorizes market instruments for electricity. The purpose of this is to provide clarity to companies around how activity pool action for electricity should be structured. These categories are also used in other criteria. For example, some of the exemptions to deliverability that I mentioned earlier. The list is intended to be simple enough to capture all kinds of arrangements that companies use to allocate energy attributes to their consumption, and it's interoperable with definitions provided by other frameworks, including RE100. You can think of market instruments for electricity as representing 4 basic kinds of relationships between electricity users and electricity generators. First, companies transact directly with generators in what is known as a power purchase agreement. This can be physical or financial. Second, companies can access low carbon electricity attributes through their electricity supplier, which is currently commonly called a green tariff. Third, companies can procure attributes separately from electricity itself as an unbundled energy certificate purchase. There's a fourth category for limited passive claims that, for example, recognizes retirements of energy certificates made by electricity suppliers on behalf of their customers through regulatory mandates, for example, the US Renewable Portfolio Standards. The standard also sets a generator age limit of 15 years for market instruments for low carbon electricity. This is a basic criterion to stimulate new LCE capacity, and it's found in several other frameworks, including RE100. There are exemptions to this limit, for example, power purchase agreements with new low carbon electricity projects that necessarily run for longer than 15 years that we will publish in upcoming guidance. The last slide to share on the implementation chapter for electricity is on temporal alignment. You saw in the in the overview of the chapter that there's a general 12-month correlation window, also called a vintage limitation. This is also the case for electricity. However, there's considerable interest in moving towards hourly instead of existing annual matching practices, and it's being considered by Greenhouse Gas Protocol, and it was consulted on by us during the development of the standard. To explain the concept, if you're unfamiliar with it, today's practices allow companies to reduce their market-based Scope 2 emissions by matching low-carbon electricity attributes with their electricity consumption on an annual basis. The result of this is that a company can consume electricity throughout the year, but match its consumption with an equivalent volume of solar electricity produced during the summer during daylight hours. And this is problematic for credibility. Reducing the matching interval to an hour requires companies to support low carbon electricity generation at the times that they actually use electricity. It increases the credibility of claims, and there's strong evidence that moving to an hourly approach can support price signals for investment into flexibility and transmission and energy storage, all of which are critical to the next phase of the low carbon electricity transition. But rather than requiring hourly matching for target performance, the standard makes a push for hourly matching through a reporting requirement while allowing annual accounting to define target performance. Category A companies that consume significant amounts of electricity, which is over 10 gigawatt hours in any deliverability regions, are required to report hourly matched percentages for their market instruments. The intent is that getting big companies to understand and report on their hourly percentage will help the process of making hourly accounting more accessible to more companies. There's an optional recognition framework that rewards companies that are reaching certain performance thresholds in hourly matching. And lastly, the SBTi will launch a call for evidence on how to best integrate hourly matching into target performance in the future. So I hope that was a clear introduction to what the SBTi says on Scope 2 and electricity. I want to conclude with a short overview of some upcoming work that supports the standard before giving my thanks and goodbye. There is the metrics, methods, and pathways documentation, which details the performance values that need to be reached over time across all targets. This documentation is currently open for public comment, but on clarity only. It's not subject to a full public consultation, and the technical content will not change because it's already the result of robust stakeholder engagement and consultation. There is the assurance framework and claims policy that will underlie all SBTi standards. And there's also an interoperability and third-party recognition framework in development. And it's intended to establish criteria and processes for recognizing certification systems and instruments that meet SBTi criteria across the main categories of instruments used in target implementation, including energy certificates and industrial and agricultural commodities and carbon credits. Now, that concludes my presentation. Please use the links shown on screen to access SBTi's online resources and the open comment period for the metrics, methods, and pathways. Thank you again to Renewable Energy Institute, and I hope you found the presentation useful.
Thank you very much for your kind attention. Now, for the REI, on the new standard of SBTi, we are planning to have a webinar where our researcher will be explained next week on the 30th. Details will be given later on. We will now move to panel discussion, and I would like to ask the moderator and panelists to come up on the stage. At this panel, on the challenges and solution for procuring renewable energy electricity, we would like to have 4 speakers representing the companies already have spoken to join in the panel. So let me introduce the panelists. From 7-Eleven Japan, we have Mr. Shiba Yasuhiro. From Hewlett Energy Solution, Mr. Yoshida Koki. And from Mitsubishi UFJ Bank, Mr. Suzuki Yosuke. And from Ripple, Mr. Miyake Seiya. And as a moderator, we have the senior manager of the institute, Ms. Takase Kae. So, Ms. Takase, please. Thank you for the kind introduction. So it has been a long seminar and very hot outside, but inside we have air conditioning and it's much cooler. But with this panel, we would like to have a discussion with those speakers who have given very interesting presentations. May I have the slides for my own comments? This is something already presented by several speakers. How much of fossil fuel prices have gone up? The oil, which is orange color, and there has been spiraling of the prices, especially from Russia's aggression against Ukraine. The coal prices have also shot up. Turning to next slide. Oh, sorry. I should move the slide myself, but I don't have the... Yes? Mr. Miyake, could you operate the slides? Thank you. At the outset, Mr. Ono has already introduced to you. More recently, it has been reported in the newspaper widely. The Moshimo series. What happens if solar, PV, and wind energy have been increased from 2022 in 5 years? 2 university professors, Professor Wakiyama and Professor Kimura, the researchers at our institute, has made analysis. What may have happened in the 5 years since 2022? The time zones for which gas has decided on the price would have been reduced, which means that the electricity tariffs would have also come down. Saving in the tune of 687 billion yen in just 6 months in terms of cost involved in procuring electricity could have happened. And for electricity procurement, various speakers have introduced to us the various systems and processes. Those who are well-versed, I'm sure, can understand. But those of you who are not that well-versed on procuring electricity, you may be still wondering and groping. For example, when you started watching a video right in the midnight, it may be something like groping in the darkness. So when you try to procure electricity, The blue shows the generating power costs for solar PV, and you also have wheeling costs involved and batteries. And if you are to procure from the market, there are certain level of the price, and you also have proprietary dedicated power plants, and you also have negotiated deals, not just through PPAs, but if you can procure from a utility. In any case, when you procure from the market and through negotiated deal, there may be some impact. But if you do have proprietary and dedicated power plants and the facilities, not much of an impact. So this is the general picture. So because you do come from different backgrounds and you have different positions, and I have tried to sort out the points for discussion, which have been repeatedly already mentioned in the various presentations. So trying to rehash the topics. With the rising cost of fossil fuels, renewables energy could have contributed in stabilizing electricity costs or not. This is the first question. And next is the main issue. What is really needed here? So, starting with the first question, with the rising cost of fossil fuels, did the renewables contribute in stabilizing electricity costs for you or not? So, Mr. Shiba, would you like to start?
Now, in terms of decarbonization, I said that we are working in 3 areas. Energy saving is one area, energy conservation. We have been doing that in more than 9,000 stores. That's about 100 million kilowatt hour of power generation on an annual basis. From the beginning, our concept is not to sell the electricity, but utilize it in our stores. That is the reason why we have been able to reduce the usage, and it has led to stabilization. And fuel procurement cost was not incurred. The first objective was decarbonization, but given the current times, we're glad we've done this.
Thank you very much. I actually wanted you to speak about that, yes. So turning to Mr. Yoshida. Yes, to give you a conclusion first. Yes, it has been contributing significantly. Hewlett does have power plants, and we do the purchase, and we make it in a more efficient usage. So it is contributing in reducing our expenses. In 2022 or so forth, there has been the rising cost for fuel, and we had only one power plant, and we have gone into losses, into red. So we have learned a lesson from that failure. We thought that we should own a power plant to fix our cost of energy. And during the nighttime, when there is a shortage of energy, we need to procure from the market still. But generally speaking, rather than purchasing from utilities, it is much cheaper. So it is electricity, the cost in market, they led at the levels, but we have a more stable way of procurement, which is having positive impact on our financial statements.
What about the market procurement ratio? Can you talk about that? About half. The reason being, because demand is 100 and the power generation is 100 in terms of procurement, and during the daytime there is excess, a surplus. And that means that we are selling to the market. But the market is becoming higher in price. And by selling this, we have been able to enjoy the benefit. And even with half in terms of mix, it is working well. Thank you.
So turning to Mr. Suzuki now, please. Thank you. The microphone is on, I believe, and thank you for the question. To give you a conclusion first, it is quite useful. It is contributing quite significantly. As I have mentioned in my presentation, MUFG, as a bank, we are also users of electricity. We are trying to purchase renewable energy. But I have presented today from financial institution point of view, the business point of view. And as has been repeatedly mentioned in the discussion, by introducing renewable energy, not just for the purpose of decarbonization, but trying to stabilize the procurement the price, and to have stability in terms of energy supply. So it has a double and triple positive impacts in trying to fix the prices. Look from the business point of view, from financial institutions' point of view, that alone is not sufficient enough. In terms of the business of power generation, all the costs cannot be fixed. Fuel cost, if we do utilize renewable energy, it could be fixed. But when it comes to insurance charges and so forth, it could be rising because of inflation. So in the future, a PPA that is linked to inflation could be introduced in the future. I personally think that would happen. The point I would like to make is that with the renewable energy to be introduced, the earlier the better is my position. Sorry for digressing from your question.
Now, inflation is often talked about. It is occurring. According to economic theory that we learned in the past, inflation rate is to be discounted to and if everything is going to go up, there is no change on a comparative basis. But energy price alone is increasing. What are your thoughts? What I want to emphasize is that with the renewable energies, PPA will mean that it is fixed for the price. And this is considered to be common sense, and that is acceptable. But in other words, in Japan, subject to deflation, where there was no inflation, the continued for 20 years. But now we have a system that has to be restructured, assuming there will be inflation. Is that the point you're making? It is as if we have to remake, but I think this is a discourse that may be required.
Lastly, Mr. Miyake, what is your comment? Now, I'm not in the position of users, but as a service provider, the price has been spiraling right now, and when Ukrainian war happened, the costs have gone up. And those who have PPA and those who have self-consumption based power generation, they are the winners. So if the market had the linked and the fluctuation occurs, if we do have self-consumption type of power generation, you can even out all the fluctuations. So it was good for us. Of course, the inflation could happen once again, and electricity cost. What would happen in the future? We need to think ahead always. The case study is happening right now, the Ukrainian war and Iranian war, or the Strait of Hormuz being closed down. To have a renewable energy, the power generation, to hold such assets would be good for the management of your business. Thank you for the good suggestion.
Now, for management of companies having renewable energy and to utilization of renewable energy will lead to stability, according to Miyake-san. Electricity price will increase without a doubt. That means that the renewable energy leading to stabilization is required. Now, Ishida-san, you have shown data, and it seems that renewable energy development is not advancing yet. So let's go into the main topic now. In terms of renewable energy, development and aggregation, there are different positions for everyone. Now, what are the challenges besetting this area on the front line? Not just what is listed here, but please talk about the challenges you are facing today. Ishiba-san, from the point of view as user, please.
For my company, as I have already explained to you earlier, in the year 2021, when the offsite PPA as a terminology itself have not been reported widely in the mass media, but we have already working closely with NTT Anode. And that case was a ballpark which was not utilized anymore. So we have been working closely with the local government to try to go ahead with the offsite PPA, because our business is related closely to the local community. So what is problematic more recently is because of reckless development, renewables have met with many problems. Try to crumble the mountains and the hills will not do for the community. We thought that we should be much friendlier to the environment as well. And we have started from 2021. It was 2023 and 2024 it peaked out in terms of properties. Ever since then, it has been reduced significantly because the sites available for mega solars have become less and less, and cost constraints have become more difficult and challenging. As I have said at the outset, for 7-Eleven, 80% of electricity cost is to do with head office, but the remaining 20% is borne by the franchisees, and we need to be accountable from the merchants. But even though it might be a little bit more expensive, it is renewables and friendlier for the environment, the merchants may not really understand. So we have tried to reduce the cost as much as possible. So the number of the mega solar projects is becoming less, and the excellent sites will no longer be available.
Thank you very much. Regarding biomass that was mentioned, I think it's about 74%, and that was in Shikoku. Yes. Projects of that kind is useful. What are your thoughts? We have been focused on PV, so balanced renewable energy is important, as already mentioned. 24 hours we are operating always. So if it's just solar PV, sometimes there are difficulties. We have to strike the right balance. Therefore, hydro and wind power, and in Shikoku specifically is very mountainous, and biochip is also used for fuel in terms of as a power source. Therefore, this energy is being used in the 300 stores we have in Shikoku.
The biomass in the local community, that is what you have explained. That is wonderful. So, to have good relationship with the local community, since you have insisted upon this, you have not met with that big a problem, but still cost is a problem. So that should be solved in the future. So Mr. Yoshida, what about the challenges? For me, in our relationship with the local community, there are some challenges. So let me explain on this. The suitable site for all the wind farms and the solar PV, the projects are being less. So how can we relate better with the local community? We are trying to go for all the forests and mountains, but those are not well developed. There are illegal dumping sometimes seen in those forests with the trees which are in the age of 60 years or 70 years already, much old forests. And they are reckless in development. And from the local community, it seems rather gloomy and very devious. But if we do fell the trees and open up for solar PV at the panels, it would be good for the community because they think that it is no longer gloomy, and they it's cleared out. So people think that it is more visible. Because we believe we should be responsible in terms of social programs. So we are trying to establish good and positive relationship with the local community. When they observe that the solar PV project is ongoing, they think that they would like to team up with us and have the solar PV projects on their own land. So sometimes we are able to establish new positive partnerships.
In terms of projects that you are involved in, you're saying that you have good relations with the community stakeholders. Yes, but before development, from the local community, it's Tokyo capital coming in, so they were skeptical. And the land that they have lived in is undergoing change. But we show that our track record, and gradually we are receiving buy-in from the community. You're doing this one by one. I understand. Thank you.
So, Mr. Suzuki, what about the challenges for you? Thank you for the question. Now, when it comes to challenges, what I can think of immediately is we are trying to be involved in sustainable energy, but we are also a bank. So with our customers, when we try to go for decarbonize, we provide consultation services to our customers. And sustainable finance is something that we can also suggest to bring solutions to social issues. But it does not smoothly move forward in all the cases. The point I'm trying to make is that looking at the market in Japan, the participants who have joined us today have a very noble attitude. But when we look at the PPAs in the market, they may not be that recognized widely. Insufficiency is something of a challenge. We are a global bank, and sustainable finance, especially for renewable energy. For project finance, we have a good track record, but mainly it is in the United States. And the price is at the good balance. So the PPAs have been supporting renewable introduction in many different markets, especially in the United States.
Thank you very much. Miyake-san? So it seems that I'm always trying to summarize everyone. But I would say there are challenges, but the first and foremost challenge is that the value of renewable energies evaluation remains low. For example, today is 38 degrees or 40 degrees. Do you know how much work is done by solar PV in terms of supply demand of TEPCO? It shows that there is about 30% supported by PV, solar PV, and Kyushu is around 60%. Therefore, you can't say that PV, solar PV, is an obstacle. It is providing support. I don't think there is enough information that is being communicated. This is a necessary power that had to be developed. And what I would like to emphasize in terms of relationship with the community is the following. For renewable energy development areas for major projects is Tohoku, Hokkaido, as well as Kyushu. What about the electricity prices? Apart from Kyushu, in fact, for Hokkaido and Tohoku, electricity price is high, even though they have significant wind power. Hokkaido is highest in terms of electricity price. This is because agriculture products is similar. people should be able to enjoy that at the best price if it is produced there. But there is a mechanism problem. The wheeling price is same everywhere. It doesn't have a system where shorter distance is lower price. So it's for example, in Tohoku, the wind power generation promote to Tokyo, it's same wheeling price. It's uniform. And this is one problem. So the consumption site and production site relationship thereof should be subject to review.
For the reasons where renewables are being introduced more, then the cost should be cheaper. That should be the ideal. That should be the case. So with the products produced in the locality, it should mean that the price should be lower. Now, it was not mentioned in your discussion, but the question of cost as well as interconnection to the grid. Any challenges? If you could raise your hand, if you have any comment, please. About the cost. FIT system that has widely penetrated, and 2022-2023, it was very cheap in terms of electricity tariff. But ever since then, because of shortage of semiconductors and with the COVID, and the import has been reduced. So the development was not being done, and that has reflected into the price rise. And because of inflation and because of the depreciated yen, the prices are going up for everything. So what was easily done in the past is becoming increasingly difficult. So which means that renewable energy, the facilities cannot be easily developed going forward. And we are desperately trying to develop even more renewable facilities. Even so,
What about compared to other products? So is it going to be more expensive for renewable energy? Not necessarily, but in terms of panel, the price is increasing, and for PV, cost overall about 30%, 40% in terms of base as well as groundwork. Indirect cost is being added, and manpower cost is also increasing. Therefore, the impression is that the overall cost is increasing today. So, Miyake-san, would you like to also weigh in? In terms of relationship with the reasons, I'd like to talk about the grid as well as the market environment. In terms of renewable energy, and globally the price is going down, but that is not the case in Japan. Why is this the case? Obviously, EPC as well as there is also the grid-related cost is increasing as well, and the expense allocation is an issue as well. In terms of the power generation side, that is subject to billing, but cost is such that a power generator to have the connectivity, they have to bear the cost. Not so much in the user side, but only for the power generation side. I think this is a discussion that needs to be had in society. We have to look to the world. But some cost on the part of power generation should be borne more equally. And in terms of the market environment, I would like to say that there is uniqueness in Japan. Because of supply, cost is incurred, and there is a capacity market. But renewable energy is always placed in an unfavorable position. If we have a PPA, it's not just wheeling, but also capacity cost has to be incurred as well. That means that competitively it is unfavorable.
In the capacity market, the value of renewable energy should be given higher credit. So Well, it seems that renewable energy businesses are making the payment one-sidedly, it seems. Any comments? The issue to do with the cost, perhaps? Any other comments, please? If I may make some additional comment. So one element of the cost, which is financing cost. Yes, this is becoming more expensive. I'm sure this is keenly felt by everybody. There could be fluctuations, but it would consistently increase going forward. This is one challenge that we need to face. It is not that financial institutions are controlling the situation because of the market movements. So it is uncontrollable looking from bank's position. So Sonia-san from Global Solar Council mentioned about the Global South, that financing cost needs to be brought down. That was mentioned by her. So trying to bring down the funding cost, as far as I know, when you have good prospects, financing cost may come down easily. So what about the institutional system outlook? Could you come up with some measures so that you can reduce the financing cost? Yes, that could happen. To give you an easy-to-understand example, because of the FIT system introduced in Japan, the initial cost have become much, much lower. But when it comes to Global South, trying to make to have general penetration of the funding cost system as a whole could be one factor. We have 10 minutes or so to go. So what about the solutions? If I could move on to the possible solutions. There are things that you can do yourselves, or there could be some institutional framework or policy framework that could help you, or you could look for good partners. So in the short term and long term, what measures could make it easier for you? Trying to remove some of the difficulties faced by your companies. What may bring a breakthrough? The Star Festival is over, and during the Star Festival, you would pray to the heaven. So any prayer to the heaven?
Now, the battery storage price to go lower is my wish. I've listened to the Miyake model, so I'm very keen to know more about what you have in mind. In terms of battery storage for on-site as well as grid, I'm interested in both. By utilizing battery storage on-site, CVS, a convenience store, is a very small usage, but there are 20,000 altogether. CVS VVP is what I would like to see achieved. I think it's possible because we are using this 24 hours without any holidays. And I believe that such a system can provide support. I was listening to Hewlett presentation as well. I think we can transcend the industry to cooperate together. In fact, we are engaging various stakeholders for factories. You don't probably operate on the Saturdays and Sundays and also weekends. And perhaps we can have an exchange. And with less regulation, I think it is possible. Repowering was also mentioned. I'm also interested in that area as well. In terms of micro hydro is also repowering. And I think with repowering of solar PV, then we have a 20-year contract for on-site PPA, and I think a mechanism that will appropriately evaluate such a project will be necessary. Thank you.
That is wonderful. RE users a symposium could trigger the major trends of different partnerships. Good. So, Mr. Yoshida, what is your prayer? Now, I have already given you in advance, when it comes to renewables, there are silos. You have power generators and you have users. But we are trying to have more of a cross-sectional partnership. Which users would like to team up with which power generation businesses? So if we can link the different businesses, even in the short term, we could create partnerships for collaboration. In the long term, this may be repetitive, but for repowering, I think this is important. I was not able to mention the challenges to do with connection to the grid. The grid is already being in over demand. So how can we be able to have access to the grid? And it was not given in the slides, but the solar PV with the battery storage for 450 kV, the panel is 1600 kV. It is in excess. But with the valuable grid, and how can we be able to have more access? And when the FIT program is ended, by introducing batteries, it could be doubled or trebled going forward. With such possibilities, not just creating newly, so trying to assess the existing facilities owned by utilities, we could team up and go for better usage.
Suzuki-san, what is your prayer? NTT Arnold gave an explanation. It started 20 years ago. You have 2,000. Miyake-san, you have 20 people. We have sustainable energy. We have 10 people in our organization tomorrow. It would be wonderful if we can double the number of talent with the same ambitions. But at any rate, in terms of a long term, what I'd like to achieve is very similar to everyone on the stage. Climate change must be mitigated. And in order to achieve this goal, I am panicking a little bit because it was explained that non-fossil fuel certificate several years going forward. And I think this is going to be more front-loaded, and there is a shortage of land where we can develop new facilities. But at any rate, as I mentioned earlier, PPA must be further enhanced, and with the real users, there seems to be a mismatch with the generation side between the user and generation. So renewable energy value as well as the PPA mechanism needs to be having further literacy. That is what I wish for.
Thank you very much. On partial basis, we have been able to see more of a revitalization. The standard setters, for example, SBT initiative or JC protocols, are trying to work out so that new investments will grow and expand. I believe they are trying hard to make this happen. So please have a great expectation for the future. So, Mr. Miyake, do you have that Star Festival prayer to the stars? No, it is already over, so I don't have the paper slip anymore. I would like to write in world peace. I'm not joking. There are two reasons for asking for world peace. Because world peace is precarious right now. So energy is impacted the most because of the Strait of Hormuz being closed down, and the war is still raging on in Ukraine. So I would hope the most for world peace. Now, what can we do for that? Trying to enhance the self-sufficiency rate for ourselves. So this is what we need to do. First of all. And second point is trying to increase renewable energy. And from that perspective, if I may dare to mention this, we need to become friendlier with China. We need to make peace with China. But the power converters and the solar panels, everything is made by China. The technology is superb and price is very cheap. But in Japan, the government is trying to exclude China. For example, to have a JC reserve to try to screen out Chinese investments. But if I may dare to challenge this, trying to exclude China or Chinese-made equipments, but the best performing equipments will no longer be available to us. Think about disadvantages. In the short term, if we are to increase renewables, we need to introduce even more cheap products and by and by turn to domestic production. I have been appealing this to LDP, and they do have renewable a team, and I'm always telling them, and they do agree, but this is a difficult issue. We cannot really say this outright. But in the long term, go for domestic production and try to develop better technology, and that is important. I do understand. But why do we need to make haste? Because in several years' time, the electricity demand will become tighter. That will be in the year 2030. And renewables is something of a must. Because for nuclear power plants, it takes 15 years to develop. And for thermal power plants, it takes several years. The shortest in terms of the lead time is the solar PV and wind, and then the offshore the wind. So it means that Japan will plunge into poverty. For example, blackouts could happen frequently. If you do your calculation, the nuclear power plants cannot be increased immediately. So renewables is something of a must in the near future. As was mentioned earlier, and 13 trillion yen was spent for subsidy on energy. If we could have made 13 trillion yen of investment into solar PV and wind, then 9% of the electricity supply, and the cost is less than 15 years per kilowatt hour. And as was mentioned in the initial presentation, solar PV and the battery, and it was very cheap. So if we do use global equipments and solar PV plus a battery, it is about 13 yen per kilowatt hour. You think that this is too cheap, but it is much closer to that number if you could add batteries to the solar PV. This is not well known by the general public. We need to promote more, and renewables should be more publicized.
Even if you were to import the panels, once it is installed in Japan, it will continue to generate electricity. And the former Chairman Thomas was also saying this as well. And just because the oil extraction equipment is Chinese, and if it is not made in the Middle East, what are the repercussions in terms of our national power impact? I think we have to speak out, engage in conversation with the various stakeholders. That is required of us. So the Star Festival is over. And let's wish for the world peace and rich, abundant Japan. With that, we'd like to bring this session to a close. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much.
皆様、長時間に
And I would like to thank the audience for staying with us for long hours, both in person as well as virtually. Thank you very much for joining us. And through this event, that the world is faced with the energy crisis and the climate crisis, trying to utilize renewables. We have been able to share the latest information and try to look from different angles the problems facing us. Now, I hope that today's symposium will be of good reference to all of you in your future activities. The archive video and the presentation today will be uploaded into our website in the future. And if you could support us by giving us your input through the questionnaire, and if you could give us your answer through the QR code being given on the screen. Let me also announce the future plans. On the 30th and on the 31st, there will be webinars, as have already been introduced earlier. On the 30th, as was explained during the special lecture, the SBT initiative's new standards will be explained by the senior manager, Ms. Takase, who served as the moderator for the panel today, will be giving the explanation. And Ms. Takase has been elected from Japan in the Technical Council of the SBT initiative. And this is not an official position of the SBT initiative, but through the experience of participating in the experts working group, we would like to provide the explanation on the new standard. On the 31st, for decarbonization of the buildings, the life cycle assessment will be made visible through the calculation. And there will be a webinar to learn about the advanced examples in the UK. I hope you will join us during the webinars. This is the end of the RE Users event. Thank you very much once again for your participation.